Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month-to-month basis. It's time to crack open our
Movie
Memoirs.
Memoirs!
All right, so Dragon, I gotta say this has been a really freaking strong month. A lot of solid films coming out. I don't want to this is just a guess, but I would probably wager a guess to say this might be the best average as far as most movies that I've actively enjoyed and went out to go see in the theater since the pandemic. I gotta say, we are on a great track. Everything Everywhere All at Once, we'll get into that, but it's making headlines. Dragon, it raised 2% at the box office this weekend. It's making more money now in its sixth week of release than it did on its first week of release. And that leads me, Dragon, to the point where I feel like this month was a very creator-driven month. Even something like The Bad Guys, which is probably one of the more commercial things that came out this month, it was really creator-driven in the fact that it's got a beautiful art style. The people behind it really wanted to make it a return to form for DreamWorks. And also, Dragon, one thing that we're just going to put an asterisk in, neither of us saw Sonic.
No.
It got such mediocre reviews that I figured, you know what? It'll be a fun thing to watch for streaming. I'll certainly catch it on Paramount Plus when it comes out there. But for the time being, I think I'm happy not seeing it in theaters. Don't get me wrong, I'm still curious about it as far as the Jim Carrey and Idris Elba side of it. But I'm just not rushing out to the theaters to see that. So no Sonic on this month, folks. But certainly a lot of really, really great films. But let's get into the news, Dragon. And of course, we start the way we do the news is we build from the literal deaths into deaths of people, deaths of companies that we'll get into, and so on. And we kind of build to the best news. And with that in mind, Dragon, oh my God, Gilbert Gottfried still hurts.
Why do we gotta phrase it like this? The deaths, it's the worst news. People dying, worst news. We're going from the worst to the best.
Obviously that's how I framed it. How did I frame it?
I mean, you're saying it's we're starting from the deaths. I mean, why can't we simplify it to the worst news to the best news? I don't know why we gotta there's not
because there's literally no worse news than deaths, Dragon.
Yeah. I know, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, sorry, semantic.
That's a weird semantic thing to get on me about. Anyways.
Yeah, for every other show, I keep phrasing it like we go from the worst news to the best news, and you're throwing we go from the deaths to the good news. It's come on.
Okay, whatever. So Gilbert.
Yes, Gilbert Gottfried.
Still a fresh wound, I think.
Yes, we've spoken at lengths about.
Oh yeah. And I think I really do think that he's probably one of the saddest celebrity deaths since, ironically enough, Robin Williams. And it's so perfect and symmetrical in that kind of morbid way that two very iconic comedians from that film are no longer with us.
Yeah, I know. It's really heady when you think about, oh God, we're killing off the kind of the wonderful people behind Aladdin, in terms of the voices that define generations. It's really a big bummer. I mean, honestly, Gottfried was he was the shocking death, for sure. I mean,
it came out of nowhere. Yeah,
no one saw it coming at all. I mean, of course, just alone Gottfried, I'm thinking of two roles. I'm thinking of Iago from Aladdin. Of course, I'm thinking of Mr. Mixia-Spitalik.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
just him as a personality, as a comedian, as a roaster, the Hollywood Squares thing.
You fool! Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Godfrey, I mean, again, it's the man was put on this earth to be funny in every way imaginable. He looked funny, he sounded funny, he was funny. He was just funny in every conceivable way possible. He had a very insightful podcast, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
But also, I mean, the
A
reason like
podcast
he's
that is absolutely trippy to listen to in retrospect, like, especially because he's talked with some people who have also recently passed.
yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, there's everyone kind of all the comedians dying off like flies this year. It's just it's crazy. But yeah, the a big claim to fame for Godfrey that'll kind of laud him in the halls of comedy clubs everywhere. The aristocrats joke he made after 9/11, which again, he basically
Mhm.
everyone's like kind of everyone's obviously depressed after 9/11, and again like he faces like the first like too soon, and his response to Gilbert Gottfried's response to too soon is the aristocrats. Only Gilbert Gottfried would ever think in those terms. Just wonderful. And he brightened the whole room up with the world's filthiest joke. Only Gottfried and maybe Bob Saget could do that.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
All right. Moving on from there, we have Robert Morse. Now, this guy's really interesting, Dragon, because he's very much a character actor. And I would honestly say he's probably most well known looking into his work. He's most well known for theater stuff. Would you say that's accurate?
I mean, that's pretty accurate. He won a Tony, I believe. He had Robert Morse, very very great actor. Here's the main thing I know him from. For me, I think the big thing he won the theater awards for was, I believe, his portrayal of Truman Capote, if I recall. But yes, so he played Bert Cooper on Mad Men. That's the thing I know him from.
Oh, okay, got
When I
it.
saw him pop up, I was like, no, not
Uh-huh.
Cooper, no. So essentially, again, here's the thing: he had a big role at the start, and it kind of became kind of more of a background role as the show went on. Because you had new characters you introduced and everything. And the idea, so you had Don Draper, the John Hamm character, worked at Sterling Cooper. So Sterling Cooper, that's two partners, two founding business partners. That's Roger Sterling, John Slattery, and Cooper is Bert Cooper. That's Robert Morse's character. So the idea is he had seniority. He knew Roger Sterling's father, and they started the company together. So he was the eldest member. The point being, so because of that, they didn't really have a whole lot to give him. But the thing that Robert Morse brought to it is that he really played up the '60s boss thing. Like he was okay. So if John Slattery is kind of the cool, laid back boss, we have the more traditional kind of guy in a suit, but also the idea in the '60s that sometimes when you accumulate power, you just kind of get complacent. Where Bert Cooper could be eccentric because he could afford to be. He never wore shoes in the office. He wore socks all the time, and he ate weird foods. And that's the kind of character actor thing that was at play. Where Bert Cooper kind of became a joke over time in a good way. Where it was like, oh, there's Bert Cooper's kind of doing his thing, and just kind of like, well, we have like a big voting kind of meeting. It's like you cast the vote, and he just kind of hangs around. He's got like the fancy paintings and stuff. Regardless, two things Bert Cooper always been known for. In that show that Robert Morse brought to life so well. He has, for my money, the single most important moment in the entirety of Mad Men. My favorite episode of Mad Men, like the episode in the first season. Like it builds to it. Like I think it's like not the penultimate, but maybe like if the season's 13, it might be episode 10. It's something like that. It's called I think it's called Kennedy versus Nixon. I think it's what it's called. Anyway. Without getting into all the nitty gritty, essentially it builds to this moment where Don Draper thinks that he's been found out, and essentially he has. And Bert Cooper just awesomely says, I don't care. And it's this amazing moment of, oh my God, like it's like the Vince Gilligan sort of thing, that we see in the Albuquerque verse all the time, as you think the whole show is built around will Don be found out? And it's like, well, yeah, he doesn't care. He gets found out in the first season. This guy just spells it out so
Oh,
wonderfully.
interesting. Okay.
So again, easily the best episode of Mad Men. And anyway, and also eventually in the show, I won't tell you when or how, but eventually he gets killed off, which is why his death's really haunting. Because he had a very memorable death on Mad Men, where essentially it's not about the death, it's about the aftermath of his death and how it
Okay.
affects Don. So yeah, it's
I mean, I just also want to highlight, like, I'm sure Mad Men is probably the biggest.
I mean, had he gotten an Oscar, he would have gotten an EGOT, I'm sure.
Yeah, but he's probably the biggest pop culture role was Mad Men, but he looks like a very accomplished like theater performer, character actor. So just looking at his like not a lot of stuff I'm really familiar with, but just like a long list of credits. So
I mean, again, I never saw him play Capote, but knowing that guy, he could absolutely play Capote. I have no
totally,
that's
yeah.
a guy of a Philip Seymour Hoffman caliber, no question. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Now's my time to kind of get up on a little bit of a soapbox here, Dragon.
Go and light the little fireworks.
Okay,
Tell us
so
about this
Dragon,
one.
I'm gonna make this a little bit interesting for you, just because Survivor has a curse, man, and
Oh
that
boy,
curse
does it!
is
It
that.
curses my Wednesdays every
No,
week.
hear me
Yes.
out. Hear me out. Okay, hold on. We're talking about people who have died, dude. All right, so.
All right, go on. Tell
Uh,
us about 'em.
so the curse of Survivor is that the best people, like as far as like the best human beings, are always the people, the alumni of Survivor that have died. Dragon, like if you go down the list, it's a small list. I think it's probably like less than 10 people. But like the first survivor that died was a young woman who was fighting breast cancer, and she was like a big advocate for that, and that was a really tragic thing. I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but Dragon, like just down the line, like the nicest freaking people who have been on Survivor have passed away. And Ralph Kaiser is no exception. Ralph Kaiser, by all intents and purposes, just seemed like such a big, lovable ball of energy. Just this goofy, giant, hairy redneck of a man. And on the show, his claim to fame was kind of literally falling ass backwards into an idol when he was on the same tribe with Russell Hantz. Russell Hantz was kind of infamous for finding pretty much every idol that he could get his hands on. And but Drake, I don't know. I just want to highlight Ralph because he's actually like one of the bright spots of one of the worst seasons. Fans pretty much unanimously agree that his season is one of the worst seasons of the show, if not the worst. But everyone loves this guy. You know what I mean? He's like the one of the very few people on his season, and just kind of like unanimously, where it's like you can't find a bad thing about this dude. And he died of a heart attack or a heart condition, I think. And he was only in his mid 50s, and it was just very sudden and out of nowhere. He was just like very much a blue collar family man. Very humble. Like he's definitely not one of those reality people that go on reality TV and then shapes their entire identity around it. He really just was kind of playing out there, just have fun with it. It's just such a shame. I don't know. It's like, again, like I'm not going to bore you with everyone who's been like a super genuine, nice person who's been on Survivor and has since passed away. But man, it's a list that's longer than it should be. All right, moving on, Dragon. Let's see. We have Neil Adams. Okay, now
This one's a massive loss.
yes. I know he's a big advocate. I know he's obviously like a big pillar of the comic book community, but Dragon, go ahead, take the floor on this. I can't really speak to it all that much. I'm sure you could talk circles around me on it.
So the great Neil Adams. So this one was a personal loss for me. I mean, I've met Neil Adams a couple times, and I was lucky enough to meet both Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, like the team that made Batman who he is, like fundamentally. So just one of the most influential comic figures of all time. This guy was, again, he and Denny O'Neil. What they did is they most famously they made Batman the world's greatest detective again, or at least officially made him the world's greatest detective versus, oh, yes, the Dark Knight detective, or what have you, back in the 40s, that he was. Like, oh, he was a really good detective, but we made him the world's greatest detective again. The big thing, Ra's al Ghul, that was O'Neill and Adams and, Julius Schwartz kind of throwing a name at him. But without these two guys, you don't have Frank Miller. You don't. Again, this is basically getting Batman to be taken. You're going from the '60s to basically, okay, let's take the '60s and
They're kind of like the stepping stone between that and the Dark Knight Returns, essentially.
Exactly. They're basically they're the way of getting us to tell serious Batman stories, and then Frank Miller gets to tell really dark Batman stories.
Sure,
so that's essentially like they're the huge, very important step. Again, gets a detective Batman before we have the dark vigilante Batman again. So obviously, between that and again, there's no Batman the Animated Series, without this huge, very important stepping stone. There's so much of Batman the Animated Series is rooted in O'Neill and Adams, and again, my favorite episodes are O'Neill and Adams episodes, the Ra's al Ghul episodes. Again, none of that without Neil Adams, and again, just beyond the Batman. Well, Batman already a man could retire on. But this guy, he fought for the comic creators. I mean, like the Comic Book Defense Fund, pretty much like there should be a giant placard if there isn't already to Neil Adams. And the biggest thing that he did is he was always an advocate for for the creators, but the most famous thing he ever did was he got Siegel and Schuster the rights they deserved on Superman.
Oh yeah, right, for sure, for sure.
Just a legendary story that he told on Fat Man Beyond, previously Fat Man on Batman, but Fat Man Beyond, in which he basically sat down with Kevin Smith. They told him the whole sordid tale, essentially, where he abdicated very shrewdly against DC to make sure like they treat the guys who Neil just chewing everybody out and then just kind of getting DC over a barrel. So they make sure that by the time the Superman movie comes out, you're going to want them in your corner, or else everyone in the press is going to know you mistreated Superman's daddies. That ain't going to fly. Much like Superman without Richard Donner, that ain't going to fly. So essentially, again, so that was the most and beyond that too. Again, if you think
you want to be Marlon Brando Jor-El, or do you want to be the Man of Steel Pa Kent?
Pretty much. So again, if you think that's not enough, also again drew the first did beyond the big two, beyond Batman, Superman. Again in regards to Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and everything, I could go on, but the big thing is that he was one of the first artists ever to draw a realistic and authentic and realistic black man in comics. Like he was the guy who's like, he had the very famous comic in which, a black man goes up to Hal Jordan and says, I seen you help the purple skins and and the green skins and all these other, the aliens, but how come you never helped the black skins? And it was like this huge moment in which you saw like a very realistically rendered black man in comics, where before it was like a whole thing of like, well, let's create like a fictional color for the black characters. Like we have to make the black characters look white. It's a whole thing. So Neil Adams, and of course Superman versus Muhammad Ali. So many things. His phenomenal artist in his prime, best raconteur and storyteller ever. I mean, he spun a yarn like no one could. I'll admit his writing stunk. I love the man, but his writing was terrible.
Oh, wow.
That's the thing. Neil Adams, most gifted storyteller, in him telling you a story, weaving
That's
in there.
Crazy. So he's like super influential for like the stuff that he like influenced and advocated for, but the actual writing was not there.
Well, that's the thing. He was an artist primarily, so he was great at the
art. Gotcha. Okay.
Denny O'Neil was the writer. Neil Adams was the artist on that team.
Sure.
So that's the thing. Neil Adams, again, he's great at the art, particularly in his prime. He created some of the most.
So he's not an artist that crossed over into the writing department.
He tried, and unfortunately, here's the thing. He would tell you about the stories that he had written, and again, you'd be sold on him like in a second. Like, oh my god, I have to read this book. Like I got that book, and it wasn't good. But again, he was a nice man. A lot of the other creators, like, here's the thing. The worst thing you could maybe say in like a convention about Neil Adams is that, he kind of like got the artist to do the upcharge, in which, like now signatures cost a whole bunch. And now you got to remember, he did that, but it was out of love and protection because of what he did for Siegel and Schuster and everybody in the industry. Because comic creators and artists and writers, they were very mistreated by the business. That's him looking out for people. Unfortunately, again, it kind of created an upcharge and kind of the economy of conventions, let's say. But again, it was out of love and again respect for the boys.
I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of take advantage of that and kind of hike up the prices more than they should.
That's the thing. So there is a slippery slope, I would suggest. And Neil Adams is kind of like, I don't think intentionally, but it kind of happened. But the point being, though, Neil Adams, a utterly storied history of just so many. Again, the man made DC Comics, and he did stuff on the Marvel side of things. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, the reason DC was like neck and neck with Marvel, and the only reason DC stood a prayer against Marvel in the days of old, in the 60s and the 70s, was because of Neil Adams. The reason like DC was reigning over Marvel in the 70s because of Neil Adams. So. Just again, just a huge loss. The man, apparently, he died of infection, which is just tragic. It was like sepsis or something. I don't know the specifics, but he did not look his age. He died at 80. Man had a youthful vigor about him.
No, that's the thing, Dragon. Because I have seen pictures of him. I was actually surprised that he was 80.
Yeah, I mean, it looks the same when I saw him, like a number.
Yeah, totally.
Like, So I mean, it's utterly just a loss. We've lost like one of the faces on the Mount Rushmore of like all the influential kind of Batman kind of writers and artists, like unequivocally. So Neil Adams will absolutely be missed.
All right, so let's transition into oh my God, Netflix as a company is pretty much dead. What the fuck happened?
Ever since they lost,
I thought Squid Game was a big hit, Dragon. Where are we? My God, Dragon. Okay, if anything else, this just proves how fucking dog eat dog corporate, corporate stuff is, because, oh my God, it's not enough to just like have hits. It's like, oh boy. Okay. So go ahead, Dragon. I'm sorry.
So honestly, I think the writing was on the wall ever since they lost Marvel and Netflix. For me personally, I think a lot of people, that was kind of like the writing on the wall. Like, yeah, here's the thing. Netflix's success, unfortunately, has kind of like an expiration date in which when the shows eventually
it's now.
Well, that's what I'm now we've realized. I'm just saying, if you like, looking back on it now, knowing the state that we're in now with Netflix, if you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, once their shows either logically end or, unfortunately, as they've been doing, but now they're forced to do, as they're canceling shows left and right, there is a consequence.
Every episode of the new Stranger Things season is like $30 million, so they're investing like way too much, too.
So that's what I'm saying. So right now, it's like, okay, so they lost Marvel, Netflix, which they already kind of canned those because of the Disney Plus thing. So that was already like, inevitability. So when they officially lost, that was like, okay, people are probably going to start abandoning ship to go to now that Disney Plus has those shows. Like, okay, we're going to go to the shows that have the Netflix shows now. Beyond that, again, you have things like Stranger Things and Umbrella Academy, which for me, I think Netflix is officially going to be a goner when those two shows. I know there are other shows people are interested in, but I mean, Ozark's already wrapped up. Yeah, you have those. I don't know what the deal with Squid Games is. And I mean, right now, it's
as far as I know, Squid Game was like a big passion project from the creator, and it took him years to write the first season. So my prediction with Squid Game is that they're going to rush a second season. It's going to flop, and that's kind of going to be it.
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, Stranger Things, we know is ending after a fifth
I don't even really like Squid Game that much, keep in mind.
My point is, so a lot of these shows, like, they're big flagship shows. Like, Stranger Things is going to go at the fifth season because they can't stay kids forever, and they got to rush the production on that, and the pandemic did a number on them. So you get Stranger Things. Umbrella Academy, I don't know how that's going to end, but I mean, that's something is not really – that one's just like right now, I think one of the most interesting things they have on there since they've lost all their superhero stuff. And beyond that, the biggest thing that they have, which, I mean, right now they're probably clinging to it for dear life, is going to be Cobra Kai, which could spell disaster for that show.
I forgot about Cobra Kai.
That's the thing. Cobra Kai is, if like Lucifer had an ending, so they can't rest on the Lucifer laurels anymore. Like Cobra Kai, it's going to be people like you and I, we want that show to have a good ending, which it probably should end after the next season. But I don't think if Netflix wants to hang on, they're probably going to keep it going ad infinitum right now.
Oh God! Oh no!
So this is the consequence.
I do not want Cobra Kai to get seasonal rot. Oh God!
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I mean it could.
And
go
Dragon, like you and I are like honestly some of the few people where we thought that the latest season was the weakest one.
Yeah, but again, like I'd say weak with the proviso, if they really save it in the next season, which should be its last, then it'd be fine. But we don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's that, and even that, Tiki, it's a question of some of these shows. Like recently, they canceled a show that, I mean, it was okay. I liked it. I wasn't like gaga over it, but Space Force. They canceled Space Force because they couldn't keep the lights on for it. And now that show ends on a cliffhanger, unfortunately, which is a shame.
I'm still bitter for American Vandal.
Right.
It's a found footage show. How fucking expensive would that be to make?
Well, that's what I'm saying, Tika. They're nickel and diming everything right now. So it's just the fact of, again, they're kind of hemorrhaging money, and they're going to...
You know what one of the bright spots of Netflix was, Dragon? Keyword was...
What?
The animation department.
Yes, so that's the worst part of this. So, yes, of course, Klaus. They made a classic.
Machines was last year, Dragon. Last fucking year.
I'll tell you one thing, Tiki. This is spearing away from the animation thing of it all, but you know what we're not getting now?
Oh God.
Nights Before Christmas.
No! Say it ain't so!
It's already a long shot, but now it's definitely not happening.
Dragon, honestly, they might pull that shit out just because how in demand are those people? That's honestly one of the things they could do still.
So you see my point. I mean, we make a classic like Klaus, and unfortunately, it's with them shuttering the animation division. That's going to be in the past. Like next time, we're not going to get like a classic like Klaus or a really good show like Troll Hunters anymore. With them, shuttering the animation division. It's a crime.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the Disney thing that we're going to talk about later kind of like counterbalances this in the universe. But man, without that Disney thing, this would be an even heavier blow. no.
So I mean, I wonder if Cobra Kai will be forced to end at 5, which could work in its favor or what. But in general, though, it's just Netflix is being really erratic right now. It's because again they've made some decisions in the past. I think they tried doing like some sort of gaming thing, which has probably backfired on them. I'd imagine because no one's been talking about it. Like you can like play some games on Netflix, I think somehow, like on your phone or something, like a mobile Netflix.
Oh, I
game.
remember seeing that. Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but yeah, this is.
I think there's like a trivia thing, which that makes sense to do on Netflix, but still, it's like
the annoying thing is going to have to find a way yet again. I just got out of like an exodus with the Marvel Netflix shows in terms of having to find them physically, but now I got to do it with all the I got to make a list of like, okay, what shows can I not live without from Netflix? What do I got to track down now? So it's eventually because when Stranger Things and Cobra Kai and Umbrella Academy are gone, I'll have nothing on Netflix left outside of a few spare documentaries.
And I feel like Netflix has been leaning like way too hard into the true crime stuff to the point where I'm sick of it and I don't even care anymore. And you know that.
I think for me, the only true crime thing that would possibly save them, unfortunately, you need progress before you can have the true crime show because it's up to date. The Making a Murderer. You need Making a Murderer. Which again, you need an ending. That story does not have an ending yet, which is very frustrating, you know?
And it's like they rushed to Tiger King season 2, and that was a fucking mess.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're taking too much time with Making a Murderer, not enough time with Tiger King.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, that's a piping hot mess right there. But,
speaking of piping hot messes,
oh god,
this just really ticks me.
Is it really bad? Is it really that bad?
It's the most ridiculous thing I've heard.
Oh jeez. Okay, I know nothing about this character.
This is what I'm saying, Tiki. There's a reason you don't know much about this character. He's a nothing character. So
like, at least Morbius had like somewhat of a role in the Spider-Man animated show, from what I understand.
That's what I'm saying. Like, everyone knows Morbius from the animated show.
Right.
Like, he's popped up in Blade and stuff. So the point is Morbius gets around. He's a fan. He's like one of the on a short list of the vampire characters in Marvel, which there aren't too many of. So anyway, El Muerto.
I mean, isn't Dracula literally in Marvel? Don't they have a version of Dracula?
Well, that's the thing. So I think, but again, probably in correlation with Blade is a bad guy. I think. I don't know. They have monsters. I know they have a Frank. It's a whole. The point being, they're like DC and Marvel have versions of the Universal classics. It's kind of hard to keep them straight.
Well, I mean, because they're all based on characters that are in the public domain. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because I mean, you have like anyway. The point being, you have. Yeah, there's a Punisher got turned into a Frankenstein. It's a whole thing. Regardless, Frankencastle they call him. Anyway, so Muerto essentially is kind of like a no-name D-lister Spider-Man villain, just a guy with, I think, if I recall, he's very forgettable. Just basically just a luchador who has a mask that makes him strong.
What the fuck?
I told you, it's just barely anything. Look, if anyone is a diehard fan of that character, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you. I'm just saying, really, like this guy, not a lot of stay power. I forget if he was part of the Dan Slott run or not. He probably wasn't.
Are they like trying to push Hispanic representation? Is that it?
They got some trendy guy to play him. Bad baby or something like bad something.
Oh God,
I don't know. The point is, I don't care, and no one should, and I'll tell you why. So of all the one ridiculous position with Sony already with all these spin-offs without Spider-Man, which I'm going to get to later.
Yes.
My point is, of all the announced like Spider-Man villain spin-offs, even non-villain, if that Aunt May thing's to be believed, which I'm just praying they at least got off that. The point being, it's just Sony. Tiki,
Marissa Tomei, multiverse badass Aunt May.
This is what I'm saying, Tiki.
I could think of worse things than that, honestly. I could think of worse things than Marissa Tomei, badass Aunt May.
Originally, it was Sally Fields, so who knows?
Well, yeah, I'd say Marissa Tomei fits the role better, so.
I mean, yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway. So only Sony would do this sort of thing. Only Sony. I just think there's Sony at this point, when I heard this being announced and it was real, Sony has gone completely delusional. Completely delusional. I mean, what are you? I mean, Craven, at least people love Craven, all right? And, I still think you really need a Spider-Man for that movie,
Yeah,
but
you
still,
need
at
like
least,
Craven, like you need like Venom at least has a monster movie gimmick you can
yeah,
work with,
yes.
even though his character is rooted in Spider-Man. Craven, you fucking need Spider-Man. It's the whole point of
But
his
again,
character.
either way, the point being, even just working with that handicap already, is the fact that people like Craven. Okay, Craven's iconic, and the reason you
Sure,
want
sure.
Craven, hey, a Craven movie, that's great. We're Spider-Man, but the point being, you
I
have
remember
that.
when people wanted Danny Trejo to play Craven back in the day.
I mean, that'd be interesting. It would be my go-to. It'd be interesting. Regardless, so you have like certain Spider-Man villains that would be go-tos. I mean, I'll even take Moreland over El Muerto. Moreland was like, again, he was like the OP Spider. He was like the overpowered Spider-Man villain that killed him once, or at least almost killed him
Okay.
once. Point being, like Moreland was like he was a John Romita Jr. character. He looked really cool. He was kind of neat. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna go obscure, go with like the big obscure. I mean, even though it's still
Uh-huh.
gonna be digging your own grave with the fact you can't have Spider-Man in these movies, but we're going with the lowest tier. I mean, I think it was Mark Bernard or Kevin Smith recently pointed this out. It's like, okay, so if we can't use Peter Parker, you know what we could do? Make some live action Miles Morales Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think the
Dragon,
reason
like because we are going to be talking about Kite Man soon. Do you think it's a possibility where it's like there's just like whoever's behind this is just like a super fan of the character and has a really creative take on it?
I really don't buy it. I don't believe that at all.
That's fair. That's
I
totally
mean,
fair. I'm just
honestly,
throwing out a
here,
what if
but I
scenario.
mean, let me put this. It boils down to this, all right? They seem to have an anti-hero problem where it's like, okay, look, you want to make a villain, they want to make a movie about a Spider-Man villain. Okay, make him a villain. Like, why are we afraid? Like, we spent like two different Albuquerque verse shows celebrating essentially villains, or at least well, at the very least one, like one major villain arc for a character. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Regardless, it just seems like it's like, okay, so I guess we're gonna make El Muerto like a full on anti-hero then, which I'm already sweating bullets for this with the Black Adam movie I have coming out on the DC side of things, but like we're gonna take a no-name character and we're not gonna have really anything to sell him on outside of maybe like, hey, remember that luchador mask Spider-Man was inspired with in the Amazing Spider-Man films? This was the wrestler in the ring that night.
Oh fuck
It's
me.
like
Oh
this is.
god.
I mean, they're not official. I'm just spitballing how terrible it could be, but that's what
No,
I'm saying. It's
I
like
know, but like you saying that, it's like, oh, I could see it.
that's the again. We're throwing Spider-Man in
Oh, I could
sparingly, and
see that, and it's painful.
so it just really feels like they're just going completely delusional. If you're going to take this, like only Marvel can go low status because again, they can build a universe around characters that aren't dependent on other characters you
Sure,
can't have.
sure.
And unless you're the only way this El Muerto movie, this still is not a good idea. They would remotely have any teeth. Is like, hey, Miles Morales is fighting him. Now, the reason I don't think we're getting Miles Morales in live action, period, right now is because I'm getting the sense that he's going to be introduced into the MCU at some point, either via the Spider-Verse animated films that they're doing, and we're going to cross over into live action, or vice versa with a future Spider-Man movie. I don't know. That's the assumption being. That's why we haven't done the obvious, like, oh yeah, Miles Morales, live action, the biggest gun we have left in our chamber here. Anyways, it's a trade. I don't know. It's Sony. Sony's on crack, man. I don't have to tell you. They really are. With this line of thinking, I would just ream into Sony if I were in the offices right now. El Muerto, what were you thinking, Amy? What were you thinking?
All right.
Like, dear God, woman.
So we move from people making like really bad decisions to, in my opinion, a really good decision. John Watts dropping out of Fantastic Four. Dragon, there's people
him, though.
There's people that are bummed about this, all right? But you know me. I just recently saw Cop Car. I was blown away by Cop Car. And specifically, the reason why John Watts dropped out was because he didn't want to get sucked up into the Marvel machine. He's burnt out making 3 Spider-Man movies. Far From Home is one of the biggest box office successes of all time. Fucking No Way Home. I'm so goddamn. This is what you do when you title all of your movies with home, Marvel. They blend together. I'm sorry. But Dragon, like, I think that this is a big win for creator-driven cinema in that, like, I love that a director like this can make something like the Spider-Man trilogy, then walk away, and I am really, really looking forward to seeing what he wants to make next because Cop Car blew my socks off. I love Cop Car. So I'm all behind him on this. Like I think if anyone's poo-pooing this, it's just I don't know. Like, are you bummed about this, Dragon?
Well, I mean, let me put it this way: I'm more glass half full than I am half empty on this, because it's like, well, I mean, look, John Watts, I think he earned a lot of street cred with No Way Home and that, but oh man, did a really good job with that one, so I could see him. I was like a little excited with him getting Fantastic Four, and of course, in general, just the whole like correlation of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four really tight. They're really close knit together, and when Spider-Man's first issue has the Fantastic
It makes sense, but I feel like by the same token, it's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Taika Waititi is a person who can like kind of transition from the indie sphere to blockbusters, and with any luck, John Watts can kind of do the same thing. I just feel like making a literal trilogy of blockbusters. He
Well, no, I don't think he made the wrong call. So you're saying
Uh-huh.
he officially said that, by the way, right? You're not just
Yes, yes.
okay. So that's the thing. That's perfectly fine though if he doesn't. Like, again, he makes an excellent point there. He doesn't want to get burned out, and he's already done the Spider-Man movies. And that's the thing. I'm saying when he was announced, it was like I saw the positives of that. Okay, well, there's your correlation. Of course, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, they're in the first issue. Okay, that makes sense. And he's friends with Johnny Storm and all that sort of stuff. It's like, so introducing him by a Spider-Man was always kind of a cool idea, but I mean, again, there's like a slew of directors we can think of. I think the biggest one, Brad Bird. So Brad Bird's back on the table.
Sure.
I mean, whether we're going to be smart enough to hire him, I don't know. He almost did that Star Wars movie once, but but I don't know. It's what I'm saying.
Give me Wes Anderson, baby.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, Matthew Vaughn, another great pick.
Bill Murray thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just kidding.
No, but seriously though, I mean, like Brad Bird or like Matthew Vaughn, or again, these would be really good directing choices, quite possibly. Huh.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, honestly. But yeah, you're right. It is. It does leave some stuff on the table for sure.
I mean, the unfortunate setback though is twofold, and that yet again, directors leave Marvel movies, which leads people to speculate. We know the reason, though, which is good, though. So that kind of takes away any mission.
No, I absolutely do not think this was a situation where it was like creative differences. I more think it was a situation of like, all right, guys, you know what? Like, I'm going to step away for a minute. And I'm sure John Watts will be back at Marvel at some point. He's got to be,
So, I mean, regardless, I mean, it's not a boon that we necessarily. It's not a bad thing that we lost him, but it is a bad thing that, well, now we've lost the director on that Fantastic Four movie.
And it's probably going to delay the Fantastic Four.
That's what I'm saying.
That's probably the worst move. That's probably the worst part of this.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's the real negative thing for me with this. Yeah. Oh, another setback. I want to cast the Fantastic Four and say that they're doing it. They're going to end Phase 4 with the Fantastic Four. Is that so much to ask?
All right. Anyway. Okay, so Kite Man.
Yeah, this is good news. So yeah,
it made me realize that I still haven't watched Harley Quinn season 2, and I really need to get on that.
Yeah, so John Watts was kind of like the middle of our, again, the half full, half empty kind of portion of our show. So now we're on to all the good stuff. So yes, Kite Man's getting the spinoff on HBO Max.
I'm cautiously optimistic about this, just because I feel like he works so well as a supporting character, and I'm always like cautious of spinoffs of characters where it's like they obviously work better in an ensemble. But I'm willing to give it a chance.
I mean, here's the two cool things with Kite Man. I mean, in general, like, again, he was always great. He gets even better on season 2 of Harley Quinn, by the way.
Yeah, I really need to check out season 2. I honestly completely blanked on the fact that I haven't caught up with that show yet.
Yeah. But regardless, it's the fact that he and Kite Man opens the door. What his show is probably going to be, and this could be really cool, very kind of James Gunn-esque, which I know. Here's the thing. I forget if James Gunn, I forget if he's doing something in correlation to the Harley Quinn animated show. Like, I don't know if he's like writing an episode or something, or maybe
him writing an episode will be tantalizing.
I'd like to think that. I know they announced something in correlation with James Gunn and the Harley Quinn season 3. I just can't place what exactly he's doing. I don't think he's directing. I don't think James Gunn's ever directed animation, so I don't think he's directing an episode. But I don't know. Point being, I don't know if he's producing or somehow. James Gunn may or may not have hands on the 3rd season of Harley Quinn. My point is, Kite Man's big draw is that he is like it's the lame kind of like D-list villains of the DC universe, particularly Batman's D-list villains. So
you think maybe the whole show could kind of like pull from that roster?
I think it could do great with that. I think it's absolutely
Uh-huh.
possible. Yes, that's what I
I could
that's
see that. I could see that.
and beyond that, I mean, the other thing too is, and here's a question, because a lot of people are speculating he would show up because they name dropped him a few times in the first season. Maybe Peacemaker could make an animated leap, and maybe they get John Cena to
Mm.
come back. So that's the thing. If they, so I don't know if maybe that's an idea they can play around with or not. Where again, Kite Man was mentioned. I'm not saying it's gonna be the same Kite Man. That's I think it should be like a get perhaps whether it's the same voice actor or not. But it's like, hey, we have Peacemaker in there. Maybe it's the John Cena Peacemaker, maybe not. The fact is, okay, we continue the encounter these two have had in another medium. But regardless, I don't know. So Kite Man coming around, and it could be a lot of interesting stuff there. So Kite Man has always got a fun and absurd character that we legitimize. That's kind of been the runner with Kite Man's returns. That Tom King legitimized him in a really funny way, and we made him endearing in the Harley Quinn show. So, I mean, that's the kind of guy. If you give him a spinoff, I would absolutely watch that spinoff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Next up, Man Thing for
Yes.
Werewolves at Night. Now, this is the Halloween special for MCU, right?
Werewolf by Night, but yes.
Werewolves by Night. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Werewolf by Night, I believe, is where Moon Knight first appeared, by the way. That's the comic, which his first appearance was. But yeah, so Werewolf by Night, yeah, it's going to be their Halloween special. So they confirmed that Man Thing is going to show up in. So Man Thing is like the Marvel's equivalent to Swamp Thing, which is awesome.
That's pretty much all I know about him.
Yeah, he's got kind of a cool design. I forget honestly, because I'm more entrenched in Swamp Thing than I am Man Thing. And Man Thing, all I recall is that I saw an encounter. I read Deadpool team up. He teamed up with Man Thing once. And Man Thing does this thing where he makes you hallucinate. I think your worst nightmares or something. And it was like the fact that it didn't work the way he thought it would on Deadpool.
So Scarlet Witch?
That was like worst nightmare. So Scarlet Witch made, I don't know, it's the whole.
Well, the thing about Scarlet Witch is she did it that one time in Age of Ultron and then never again.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, she got in people's heads. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily. It was more like visions of.
I still think the Peggy Carter thing in Age of Ultron is still one of the more memorable parts of that movie for me, though.
I mean, sure, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how much of that's really like necessarily worse fear. I forget what Man Thing makes you see. I think it's worse fears. The point being, yes, it's hallucinatory of some kind. The point being, Man Thing and Ghost Rider get along famously. Regardless, yes, the point is it's just going to be cool to see Man Thing realize that, given the fact that Swamp Thing had a TV show and Man Thing's going to be showing up in live action too. That's just really neat.
All right, so you know what else is neat, Dragon?
What?
Hand-drawn animation, and it's making a comeback.
Yes, so we had this confirmed by Eric Goldberg and Jennifer Lee.
Oh my god, I'm so happy about this. It's about damn time.
So it sounds like Jennifer Lee, who's in charge of
Hey, Disney, you like money, right? Well, you like things that people are nostalgic for? People are nostalgic for 2D hand-drawn animation. It's a win-win. All right, I'm sorry, Dragon, go ahead.
So yes, if I recall, Jennifer Lee is basically who runs the the Disney side of the animation division. She's reopened like kind of like the hand drawn kind of programs. Like I assume they've been kind of testing out with the circle. The short circuit, the short circuit shorts. They were essentially the Pixar Spark shorts, but some of them dabbled in the 2D a little bit more. Anyway, so the point being, I think they just kind of like that was kind of like the beginnings of it. Now they've officially it's reopened, like retraining people how to draw a 2D, and we're gonna like make. Ideally, I think the end goals are we're gonna do a feature on it. You know who I want them to give their first feature to?
Who?
John Cars. We got to give John, after what he did with Paperman, we got to give him a feature.
Oh man! Oh god! Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I'd love it if like we reveal like he's getting the. Honestly, with this comeback, I'm really hoping Brad Bird's next movie. This gives me hope that Brad Bird's.
2D fucking.
Well, remember,
it's a running joke at this point, but 2D black and white film noir by Brad Bird.
True. But I got to remember, Brad Bird's got his sci-fi noir detective movie that is happening. It's Skydance. So I'm hoping that they haven't said whether it's going to be 3D or 2D though, and I forget if their last film. I forget if they did Wolf Walkers or not. I'm not sure.
Ooh,
that's the thing. I can't remember if that was them.
Wolf Walkers. No, that was. Yeah, I know the name of that studio. I just can't recall it off the top, but it's not that. Yeah.
Well, anywho, they regardless, like they haven't said whether it's going to be 2D or 3D. Now, so I'm pulling that's also going to be in 2D, but we'll see. That'd be really full circle. That film was originally pitched for 2D. But
Uh-huh.
so was The Incredibles. So I don't know. Incredibles was supposed to be a 2D film that then became 3D when I got over to Pixar. So who knows? Regardless, but yeah, this is great news. I mean, honestly, Goldberg could get a feature. What do you think about old Goldberg directing? I don't think he's ever directed a feature.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, he
That I
didn't
could
direct
definitely see that.
because I mean, he didn't direct the Cobbler film, did he?
I don't. Oh God, I don't know.
I don't think he did. So I know he's directed shorts, like he did the Fantasia.
Dragon, you're putting me on the spot here.
No.
I honestly don't know.
Well, I know you don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm thinking of, regardless. So the point being, though, a lot of people we can give shots here with this. And again, the return to 2D is what Disney's been in dire need of. So this would be good.
Yeah, sure.
And again, balances out the loss of Netflix's animation division. So,
and then that also brings us to
things that are long overdue.
Bob Odenkirk, James Hong getting Hollywood Walk of Fame stars. I'm not really all that enthusiastic about the Hollywood Walk of Fame, if I'm being honest. I think it's kind of gimmicky and tourist trappy at this point. But hey, it's like good on them.
It's nice that they get a little ceremony, get their due. Adam West had a campaign for 5 to 6 years to get him a star.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And it's the fact that you put your dues into the industry, and it is ridiculous, like the process in which they delay these stars. They wait until like a project or something coming out. But regardless, so Bob Odenkirk with the finale of Better Call Saul, they finally gave him a star, and they put it next to Cranston's.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. And James Hong's been in the industry for like 90 plus films. That's pretty
yeah. I think it's kind of ridiculous that he hasn't gotten one yet. Like probably even more so than Odenkirk, just because I love Bob Odenkirk, but he's got even more of a legacy.
I mean, true. I'm happy Odenkirk just kind of lucked out and he got one. I'm just like, hey, cool.
Sure.
But, yeah, James Hong though, that's a very well earned star. So I mean, it's a big deal when you get the star, man. It's nice.
All right. Trailer for Chippendales Rescue Rangers. I don't know about this movie, Drake. I really don't know about
you're not sold on this. I'm surprised.
Nah, not really. Not really. It could be great. It all depends on the writing and the finished product, Dragon. It could be like, the writing is super sharp, like Emperor's New Groove level sharp. It could be great. I don't know, man. I don't know about the style. I don't know about some of the references. Like the adult Peter Pan just honestly just kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Now, to be fair, again, I think the idea is he auditioned. Like Jacob speculated to me that it was not the actual Peter Pan, but either like the fictional actor playing Peter Pan or like a guy who didn't get the role is dressing up.
Okay, if it's the fictional actor playing Peter Pan, that's even worse because Bobby Driscoll had a really, really tragic childhood. Like Bobby Driscoll is like one of the original like tragic fallen child actors, Dragon. So really? It's like, yeah.
Well, again, I might be getting that
like
wrong.
I feel like if that's the case, it's pretty tasteless in my opinion.
Well, I mean, in that case, it's probably not. It's probably just like a guy like who auditioned for the role that did not get it. I'd imagine. I don't know. A point being, it's going to be. I don't think it's necessarily. I like it honestly. I'd like it to be Peter Pan, but I don't think it is going to be.
I want it to be a grown-up Peter Pan too. That's what I want it to be, honestly.
Yeah.
I want the idea of it to be like Peter Pan like played himself as a kid when he was young, but unlike the fictional character, the actor actually grew up.
Yeah.
I think that'd be more funny. Like, I just don't want it to be an actor just because of the Bobby Driscoll thing. I don't know.
I didn't know anything about this Bobby Driscoll thing. That makes it kind of sad, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do worry about with that whole joke. Yeah.
Regardless, though, I mean, I'm liking about it. I like that it's very meta. It's kind of irreverent. Kind of there's like
it's certainly meta. I really hope it's not like a Ready Player One thing of like, oh, how many Easter eggs can you spot? Look, it's that character. It's like I want there to be a point. I want it to be more like the Lego Movie. If it's more like the Lego Movie in that it actually uses its irreverence and its meta commentary for something deeper, then yeah, great.
That's the thing.
I got to admit, I'm really like it. I got to warm up to these voice actors playing Chip and Dale Dragon. I understand the joke that it's like that the voices that we're used to are not the actors' voices. I understand that. It's still really weird. It's still really weird.
I thought you liked Sandberg.
I like both of these guys, Dragon, but it's still weird hearing them do Chip and Dale, though.
I mean, ultimately with this movie, the odd choice, but again, the possibly rewarding choice seems to be okay, just as a fun kind of like hilarious kind of Roger Rabbit take on Chip and Dale, this could be funny. Not be but I think a lot of people were expecting a definitive sort of like, hey, we're doing a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie.
Mhm.
Where this is going to be like more of like, hey, it's just kind of like having fun in by proxy of Chip and Dale.
This almost feels like Dragon. Best case scenario, this is a spiritual successor to Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting. Which I'm
best
liking.
Case scenario, and I don't think that's beyond reach.
Yeah, I mean the trailer seems like that's what they're going for. I mean they have a shot. Obviously, it's not going to surpass Roger Rabbit, but it seems like it could be
obviously
in the
not. Obviously not. But oh god.
And the Oscar goes to premiering.
Oh Jesus!
God. Anyway, so let's talk about let's talk about Don't Worry, Darling.
Yes, I am actually super stoked for this. Dragon, you've never seen Booksmart, have you?
No, I haven't. But Olivia Wilde directed that, right?
Yeah, and Booksmart is like, I honestly, legitimately think it's one of the best comedies of the 2010s, just straight up. Like, as far as like just pure comedy goes, it's wonderful, coming of age, and my God, this movie looks bananas and nothing like it. And I am super intrigued by that. So, what do you think, Dragon? What's your take on this?
Well, that's the thing. So, stylistically, I think it's got really interesting, really striking visuals. Of course, Chris Pine being involved, that's a win for me.
I'm really interested in Chris Pine's character because it looks like one of the few times he's playing a bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, it really seems like, I think the movie's going to be about like gaslighting. It seems like we're kind of gaslighting a housewife. It seems like to a degree.
The only thing I worry about is it kind of feels like a little bit derivative of the Stepford Wives in some ways.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's what I think it's one of the vibe I was alluding to, the gaslighting thing. It has a little bit of Stepford Wives.
But I mean, we'll see if they make it their own. That's great. I'm just like, I still have like the Stepford Wives remake from 2005 or whatever it was. That movie was not good. But this looks like kind of like a combination of Stepford Wives and Truman Show, and that's a good combination.
Yeah, well, yeah, you still never got. Did you ever get around to watching the Truman Show?
Not actually all the way through, no.
Oh man, you gotta see it all the way through.
I know.
Anyway,
okay. I feel like because I know the twist, I'm kind of reluctant to.
Oh yeah, but the ending's really beautiful, though.
But that's the thing. I know the ending.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways,
it's like an Odyssey, though. He's got to get.
It's one of those pop culture. It's one of those pop culture things where it's like I know I need to see it, but it's like I almost feel like I already have seen it just because I know so much about it.
Yeah. So what's wrong with the rerun?
All right.
Okay, that's news.
Okay, so now we move on to the April 2022 movies. Let me adjust the banner. All right. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Hey, yo.
What?
What? Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going left to right on this. Okay, you're right. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. They're both overly long titles, all right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just like written out literally how we're going to cover them, so there's that too.
All right.
Okay.
You go first on this one.
Right. Sorry.
I can go first.
Yes, please go first. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So this is, of course, the kind of like the meta Nick Cage movie with Pedro Pascal. All I can say about this movie is I love all the meta Nick Cage stuff. I love Pedro Pascal. This is honestly probably my favorite Pedro Pascal performance I've seen. I just think he's such a sweet guy, and I love that. Nicolas Cage has an intuition that he's not a bad guy, and spoiler alert, he's not. I think my favorite scene in the movie is just them discussing their favorite films. I could literally have a whole movie about that, about them just being friends, and like I legitimately, Dragon, I legitimately want Pedro Pascal and Nicolas Cage to have a podcast just geeking out about films, because I could listen to that shit for hours.
Yeah, I mean, this was just this is a wonderfully meta Nick Cage film. It's a lot of fun. It's, I gotta admit, it's not quite what the trailer sold us, but it turned out still being pretty, pretty great. It's
So I want this to be like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. I really do. I want this to be a Birdman. Dragon, unfortunately, I have to give this like a 7 out of 10. And you know why?
I mean, you can't even go up to 8.
The action just did not work for me. Like, once this movie got into full-blown action movie mode, I was so bored by it. I really, really, really don't buy Tiffany Haddish and Ike Barinholtz as the FBI agents. Like, they were just, like, in my opinion, you could have cut them entirely out of the movie and just had Nicolas Cage in a dangerous situation, and it would have been all the better for it. I like Tiffany Haddish as an FBI agent. Just sorry, no thank you. I just don't buy it at all. It really dragged the movie down for me, unfortunately. I love all the stuff that's just him and Pedro Pascal hanging out. And I think there could have been an element of like, oh, is Pedro Pascal a dangerous drug lord, or isn't he, without it being like this big to-do subplot. And I certainly think the action is really, really drawn out. I get that it's kind of the point. I get what they're saying about, like, oh, like, is it going to be... Okay, let me put it to you this way, Dragon, all right? There's a moment in the third act where Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal, they're literally like, they're at the cliffs where their relationship kind of first started, and they're like, all right, let's figure out how this thing ends. Let's close out Act 3, right? And I'm like, okay, this has got to be like, we're kind of nearing like the end of the movie. Like, this has got to be like the climax. But Dragon, literally, it's like the start of Act 3, and there's a whole extended, like, 20-minute, and they chase, and I mean, ultimately, I like the ending of the movie. Like, I like when it cuts to credits, I like where it all ends up. But man, that chase scene just killed it for me. I just leave that generic action bullshit out of my... I know I'm sounding like such a snob, but it really did do it for me. Again, still a really solid 7 out of 10, close to an 8, but I'm sorry. I probably sound like a total dick.
Little chintzy with the 8. I'm just gonna say that. A little like you couldn't give it the extra point. You had to go with the 7.
I have to go with the 7 just because it just...
I mean, look, this movie, I think, it's a brave and fun comic, kind of comic choice for Nick Cage. And also, I think it's kind of his attempt to wake up Hollywood to the fact that, hey, guys, I know what you say about me. I'm self-aware, though, okay? Like, I remember the whole press junket, it's him saying, like, guys, look, I'd love to be in all sorts of movies. Like, I wish they cast me in some comedies. I had fun with it. How do you feel the young Nicky effect?
I really like it. I kind of wish they would have used it more, honestly.
It got really weird, didn't it?
I mean, honestly, that's the thing, Dragon. The third act just feels so generic compared to the rest of it. And if it really would have stuck to landing on some of the weirder elements, I think this easily could have been my favorite movie of the month.
I mean, I got to be honest. With the movie itself, I mean, a part of me just kind of wonders if, I wonder if, had we taken the CIA element out, it would have been like just Nick Cage in sort of like an Island of Dr. Moreau situation, which would have...
That sounds awesome to me.
And it makes me also wonder, like with the Javi thing of it all, is like, do you think we softened things with for our little loophole on Javi? Like Javi's not, like the bromance is true. It's like there's no real dark side to Javi,
Okay, I actually like that twist just because, like I said, I like the fact that it's like Nick Cage's acting intuition turned out to be right.
That is funny though, yeah.
And I like that payoff.
Yep. I mean, of course. I mean, it's easily though. I'm full agreement. The best aspect of the film, it's the bromance, Pedro Pascal and Nick Cage.
I mean, just give me a podcast of those two just geeking out about films, and I would listen. I would listen the heck out of that podcast, Dragon.
I mean, in regards to the third act, I feel like that. Here's the thing: the twist in the third act, I think, is plot insurance. in that I think it does cover them, and when we reveal things at the end without getting into what it is per se, it's like, oh yeah, so like we can go as crazy or as generic as we
Uh-huh.
want, and that
Uh-huh.
we okay, well we have a reason for it. So if things aren't really making a lot of sense, well we have a built-in reason for it. So I think they kind of saved their bacon on that at the end, but it's still like we're still dealing with some of the CIA stuff. Which I mean, Nick Cage, like as like an actor forced into doing some CIA stuff, that's fun, but I don't know. I like Tiffany Haddish, but it's not.
I like her too, but she's quickly becoming like kind of just like one note, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I've
It's
seen her.
like when she first popped up on she's one of those comedians where it's like when they first pop up, they're really fresh, but then it's like they just keep doing the same thing over and over.
The LSD scene, just so great.
Fucking wonderful.
So great. Just like you got all your chase stuff. That was the chase stuff at its best, though, right? Like,
Well, yeah, if the finale was more like that, then I'd love it.
well, a lot of I also want to highlight too. I just love that there was a lot of range on Nick Cage in this film. Like a lot of self reflection. Again, a little bit like mind you, this is a very fixed like the whole daughter thing. That's as very much as fictional for the film, but
Uh-huh.
it's the fact that because I know he has a son. I don't know if he has a daughter as well, but the fact is, it's like self reflecting and looking at like that of the actor's experience. Like you put yourself before your your ego and yourself. In this case, like a literalized version of your ego with Nikki. Which, by the way, is a deep cut Nick Cage thing, by the way, because apparently he did interviews as the young Nick Cage, like Nicky.
Oh
He
God.
did like a persona on some interviews. Like he would dress up as that guy, and he would do interviews, like I assume on Arsenio Hall and stuff. But they got that anyway. But yeah, it was just kind of again, it was a brave film for him. I had a lot of fun with it, but yeah, it probably could have been plussed a little bit.
All right, so everything everywhere all at once. I mean, I can't really say much about this film that people haven't already said. It's just fantastically fresh and original, and Doctor Strange has its work cut out for it as far
Yeah,
as being a
I
multiverse movie.
debated seeing after hearing all the buzz. I do kind of want to. I want to see this, but not after.
Rakakuni Dragon.
Here's the thing. I know that especially because I got to see if that's real or not.
Rakakuni.
Here's I've heard it. I've heard people talk about it, but I just can't believe it until I see it. But regardless, though, here's the thing. I'm really intrigued by this one because I heard a sell for this film I never heard before. It made me like, oh man, I really want to see this movie.
What's
Not
that?
that, not the wreck. I heard like there's this big emotional like Kevin Smith kind of framed this scene between the Michelle Yeoh character and I guess I don't know. I think it's a multiversal version of her husband or something, and
Yeah,
she kind of
Katie
has
Kwan.
sure. Yeah, oh yeah, no, that's so that's yeah, it's the short round.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so between those two, and basically it's talking about the lives that like that it was something along the lines of I would
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yep. Yeah.
something
Oh
like
God.
something about
Oh.
breakfast and taxes.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean that scene really sold me on. Oh man, I really want to see this movie. But again, I can't do it until after I see Doctor Strange, though.
So Dragon, here's the thing. Kehi Kwan, at this point, like I am fully rooting for him to be nominated for an Oscar. He is like Michelle Yeoh is wonderful as well. I love her too. I would love to see her nominated for an Oscar. But my God, this movie is like it's a two-man show. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis too. Honestly, she's fantastic too. She's got
She's
a really
in this.
yeah.
Hmm.
And she's honestly probably got one of the weirder, more out there roles where she has to do a lot of like really weird physical comedy. Um, yeah, the cast all around is great, but like the two, the lead married couple, like Kehi Kwan, it's so freaking wonderful. Drake, he hasn't lost a step. I mean, it's like you just like as soon as he comes on screen, you just like, oh, that's short round, but it feels so authentic and like the dude just, oh my God, he's easily like the most compelling character. I can't even like, yeah, you just need to see it. I will say there is one plot point in this movie that kind of got under my skin and kind of like God, that's like a pretentious like
Like we're
film
doing so
school.
much right, and then we do this.
Okay, I'm just gonna tell you what it is because I think you're gonna cringe at the concept. All right, there's a bagel that the villain literally puts everything on, and it's like a big symbolic plot point.
Wait. So, Tom, it's like talking to Brando. Like, so you're going to tell me it's like Donner talking to Brando. I want to play it like a bagel.
No,
Like,
I'm saying like this bagel is like, it's like an everything bagel, except the villain has put literally everything in the universe onto it, and so it's basically like a black hole sort of thing. That stuff loses me. That stuff, it's just like, okay, like this is clearly,
is it just
like,
the bagel, or is it like a black hole on a bun?
It's like a black hole on a bun.
Okay, so it's literally like a plot point that the bagel's important.
Yes.
It's not just, he doesn't just have a bagel then.
And it's like, all right, and at that point, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing there, movie. Like, everything bagel. This movie has everything. Very. At that point, I hate to admit it, but that kind of drags the movie for me from like a 10 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. But it's still a fantastic movie. And I think, honestly, I might be more, like, if I see the movie again, I might understand the symbolism of that a little bit better. I think my main critique is that the symbolism and the themes of this movie are a little bit on the nose. It's not really subtle at all. But, there's not really, like, it's a movie with a goddamn Ratatouille parody with a raccoon. It's not supposed to be subtle, so I really do need to see it again, honestly.
The big appeal for me with this seems to be that it's Michelle Yeoh. Like, we're giving an actress who would not ordinarily get this opportunity, and we're giving her, like, it sounds like with the multiversal components, she gets to play everything under the sun.
It's literally like she's fantastic. Yeah, and just, if this movie doesn't get nominated for best editing, then that's just gonna be fucking ridiculous. All right. Okay, so Morbius, yeah.
Buckle up. All right, so yeah, I really didn't care for this. You know me, I try to avoid the bad movies, man. I know it was kind of hamstrung, and I have to see Morbius mainly for the Keaton of it all, and it was a mistake. Yeah, one of the worst movies I've seen in theaters, Tiki. I mean, it was
like ever.
You gotta remember, I actively try to avoid bad movies in theaters. So because of that, I mean, like, rarely, I mean, I think probably the worst thing I can think back to that I've seen, like, objectively bad, was probably, the Hellboy movie they came out with. And even then, I saw like very few redeeming values. I'm saying this is worse than the Hellboy movie. So here's the thing. So as Morbius was announced, and the thing it does that stills, and you can see it in the movies, that Leto is a good casting choice for Michael Morbius. I mean, I wish. Did you ever watch Spider-Man the Animated Series?
No, but just fuck Leto as a human being.
Well, yeah, sure, but I was gonna make a point before I got to that.
The dude is literally a cult leader and a massive creep. I have
Wait, he's a cult leader? I didn't know about.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I heard some much more mundane, more Curb Enthusiasm.
Yeah, No. Like, I'm not into cancel culture, right? Like, I'm not into that. I don't subscribe to that. Leto, just as a person, is just like, just no.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
All right, my point was Leto. I was thinking more in lines. When I think Michael Morbius, I'm thinking of kind of the whole kind of almost Transylvanian accent on Michael Morbius. Which, like, you've seen kind of Leto do something like that, and they're like here and there do kind of like a creepy. Like, you could see him easily being that character. Is my point. That he's like kind of the foreign long-haired guy. That's usually Michael Morbius. I could see Leto filling into that role. And again, when you see him with the the effect on him and everything, when he goes full vampire wearing all black, okay, it's not a bad representation of out of context. Just looking at that, or like the trailers, like, okay, I could buy that. Now, that's it. I heard this is much less controversial, mind you. I heard that Leto was just such a prick on set that what he did was he was going method with it, and by method he's in a wheel. Let me say, he's on crutches.
I know what you're gonna say, and it's fucking ridiculous.
That's the thing. He's on crutches, folks, only for like the first act, barely the first, like, for 20 minutes of the movie. He's on crutches. So he's just using crutches, because again, instantly gets turned into the vampire, like at the top of the movie. So it's like, for 20 minutes, okay, he's in crutches, and you mean to tell me, like, I need to be method? I need someone to wheel me to the bathroom, because I can't, like, I'm me being method. I can't just walk away.
This guy is he's so far up his own ass dragon. It's not even fucking.
So all the method, basically, Jared Leto.
I feel like winning an Oscar literally ruined this guy's head.
Pretty much. Anywho, so all that's regardless. So. That's all the nice things I can say about the movie. What does that tell you? Just look, Sony just doesn't get that you can't keep doing these bad guy spin-offs that are Spider-Man bad guys without Spider-Man. And even here's the thing with Morbius, it's very apparent in the movie. So much so, I got so bored and checked out during this movie. I've never been this boring and checked out in the theater watching a movie ever. At least Hellboy, I could follow what was going on. It wasn't great, but I could follow it. Where this is like, man, I am just so bored. I cannot wait for this movie to end. It was just they manufactured the lamest villain possible in a movie that should not have a villain.
Milo.
Yeah, pretty much.
All I know about him is that he had the reason he is named the way that he is really weird, right?
I mean, what do you mean?
I mean, isn't that didn't Morbius name him Milo? And
yeah, you're right. Yeah, the Milo.
Yeah, he wasn't technically the first Milo or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a whole stupid thing in the movie. Yeah, that's a whole thing where it's like he meets the guy and he nicknames him Milo because it's like he's like in a home for the sick because he has the blood disorder, and that's how he beats him. Anyway.
I mean, to me, when I heard about that, psychologically, that sounded fucked up. Just because it's I don't want to dwell on this point, but it's okay, this little kid is in this center for for diseased children or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're not even going to call him by his real name. It's no, you're Milo now.
God. Anyway, so it's just the fact that, I mean, see,
I'd be a villain to that kid too, Dragon.
Here's what I was hoping this movie was going to be. And the first act seems like, okay, we might be going this direction, a little choppy in the editing, but it seems we might be going in this direction where, okay, you have a doctor who's does care about people with diseases because he himself has had a disease, tries to cure himself, and basically you should tell the tale of the wolf man but with a vampire. That's essentially what it should be. Where he's a bad guy, but he doesn't want to. That's the whole That's Morbius as a character. He's a vampire who does not want to feed. He's a reluctant bad guy. That's the idea. Not per se an anti-hero because he's still draining people of blood, but Spider-Man the Anti-Heroes kind of turns him into anti-heroes. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's you only get to an anti-hero place if you have a Spider-Man to go off of. You need that's your redemption. Without that, you got nothing. So, one, we should keep him the bad guy, and with that, the way you do that is okay. Man becoming the bad guy of his own story. Where's their drama? Where's their conflict? Okay, going up against Spider-Man, who in our movie is framed as the antagonist to our bad guy. We feel sympathetic for, right?
Yeah, it's never going to happen.
That's what I'm saying. Never going to happen.
Spider-Man's way too marketable of a character to have him be anything but virtuous.
Okay, but here's this. Well, I'm saying, no, Spider-Man would be a good guy, but I'm saying, hey, Morbius is killing people. I mean, Spider-Man would not be an actual bad guy, too. I'm just saying
I understand what you're saying, Dragon, but it's still never going to happen.
But, okay, here's the better thing, okay? The only other person you could put in a Morbius movie that would make sense as someone from the fight, Blade. But
totally.
Unfortunately, we can't do that because Mahershala's busy. So we make it Matt Smith as just the random Milo friend / brother figure.
Ooh, it's Doctor Who.
I know that's the big thing. They're banking on, hey, Doctor Who. The last, we had another BBC.
Okay, it's not the Doctor Who that we care about. Let's just put it that way.
No, exactly. It's hey, we have a Doctor Who, and hey, we cast a BB star in a Marvel Doctor role. So, no. So regardless, I mean, here's where they completely lost me. Here's the movie I completely okay, I'm just calling BS on this entire movie and throw my hands up in the air oh, this is ridiculous. Where it's it's literally, okay, we're doing potentially, he kills a ship full of guys. They didn't really do anything to him, but they were, they were going to kill the vampire on board and he killed him out of self-defense. That's one thing. That's okay, so he's feeling bad about killing people. That tracks. Okay. And then we do a frame-up plot where, okay, he presumably kills a woman in a hospital because of bloodlust. But no, we have to make it a whole frame-up thing where no, he didn't do that. It was his evil brother guy Milo, because he's not his biological brother, but he's his friend who's essentially like his brother. The point being, his finger-rooted brother. Anyway, so it's no, it was he framed him essentially. It's why? Why are we doing it? Just let him be a vampire. Why are we doing a whole good guy, bad guy thing? This is not the movie to do that. And then the worst thing, I'm going to try and save people here. Let me tell you how the Vulture thing goes, okay? Because it's not good. Whole reason I really wanted to see the movie, because I was hoping maybe Keaton's going to be in the third act to get him out of prison once he's framed, or whatever BS. Or he's going to team up with him to get out of there. That doesn't happen. Here's what happens. Post-credit and after-credit scene with the Vulture, neither of which make thing from Venom 2, where Vulture now, just to make everything worse, he's been plucked out of the the MCU and put into some sect of the Sonyverse.
Yeah,
I
this is fucking ridiculous.
I don't know. You heard about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just got plucked. I assume, my theory is that we were in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. By the way, it's my guess. No way of knowing one another, and now he just wants to team up, and he suspects Spider-Man's behind it. So, hey, Morbius, want to get Spider-Man with me? Yeah. So just essentially, like, he has no reason. Like, what did Spider-Man
Why does Morbius even care about Spider-Man?
It makes it sound like Spider-Man's not even a thing in this universe.
Furthermore, why does Vulture care about Spider-Man?
That's what I'm saying. It makes no sense. So, I mean, maybe because he wants to get back to his wife and daughter in the MCU, but we did that with Sandman, and I don't know. It's a
dude,
it's just terrible. It was not good. So the problem is, again, they don't care what's going on in the MCU. They're just writing like Vulture stuff that makes no sense. And here's the thing that baffles me. Remember that shot in the trailer? Got everybody talking, a little graffiti or poster of Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm.
Not even the movie. They cut out your Spider-Man references only to end with you name dropping Spider-Man.
You know what else I heard that they cut?
What?
That whole joke where he goes, "I am Venom." Just kidding, Michael Morbius at your service. I heard they keep "I am Venom," but literally cut the joke part.
Yeah, they did. They cut out the whole like
what the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah,
all right,
it's not good. So again, it's just terrible.
All right, we spent too much time on this movie already.
I know, it's terrible.
Okay, let's get to The Northmen. Oh, all right. So this is a Robert Eggers movie. Robert Eggers has quickly become, after 2 movies, one of my favorite directors with The Lighthouse and The Witch. I will admit, this is definitely a change of pace for him. It's still very altruistic, very much kind of like in that sort of like really authentic dialect and stuff like that. Much more of just a straight action movie than any sort of horror or psychological thing that like he's done before. It is a really good exploration of revenge. And basically dragging the whole idea with this movie is that the Viking folklore that this movie is retelling is essentially the kind of the blueprint for Hamlet. So it's got the whole thing where the brother of the king murders the brother, and the king's son swears revenge and all that. So it's pretty much like a beat by beat retelling of Hamlet to a certain extent. And I will say that for Robert Eggers, it's definitely like easily my 3rd favorite of his 3 movies. It's nowhere close to The Lighthouse, in my opinion. But it is quite good. It's got some very visceral action. I do think that Alexander Skarsgård is probably the highlight. I think that he's just like very, very raw and visceral, and you just really get to see the rage and how the quest for revenge just kind of consumes him. And as far as that goes, it is a pretty powerful take on on kind of like the cycle of revenge and what it does to people, and how and how getting revenge doesn't really solve anything. It just leads to more problems. There's a really, really good twist involving Nicole Kidman as the mother that I won't spoil for people. And also, weirdly, Dragon, Ethan Hawke pops up as the king who gets murdered in the first 10 minutes. And I did not recognize him at all. Like, I didn't even know it was him. So, I think as far as cons go for me, I don't have much. It's just not really I'm a huge horror movie fan. And I'm not that big of a fan of these kind of visceral, revenge, bloody action movie things. So I think it's definitely a taste thing for me. I think Robert Eggers, The Lighthouse, is going to be hard to top for him as far as his filmography goes, no matter what he does, just because that movie was so up my alley. It was pretty much made for someone like me. But I will say that it's definitely it's still a really solid 8 out of 10. The production values are incredibly on point, sound, all that good stuff. my biggest con is the fact that he does some straight up Darren Aronofsky bullshit, as I call it, where there's this whole motif where the movie keeps cutting to this literal family tree, and it's very like indie artistic, where it's like, like this big, like, fantastical tree with literal people in the branches to represent the family tree. And I'm just like, all right, this movie doesn't need this. Like, this is literally like you're doing too much art house at this point. Like, ironically enough, Dragon, like for a director who is very much known for his altruistic like art house style, I feel like I feel like he kind of goes a little bit too hard into it when he had a pretty easy setup for, like a pretty straightforward revenge movie. And like weirdly, the art house stuff kind of like takes away from the revenge stuff. But still very compelling, just not overall my cup of tea. Like I said, like out of the 3 Eggers films, it's my 3rd favorite, but still a favorite. It's still very, very good. One of the best of the year, probably my top 5 of the year, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that's about it. All right.
Okay, The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, The Unheard Tapes. So long story short, this is a very solid Netflix doc. Apparently,
it's good to see that Netflix is actually like kind of going the feature film route with the documentaries.
Yeah, this is one that warranted it. Remember, this is supposed to be kind of like, and again, I wonder if this, I assume this is still happening, but given The Sky is Falling on Netflix, I don't know. They're doing that Ana de Armas, Marilyn Monroe biopic.
Right.
I mean, I think
I'm pretty sure that's already been shot.
Yeah. I mean, the question of, I don't know if it's gonna, I think it's supposed to happen later this year. I think, it's already been shot and it's going to come out later. So, yeah. Regardless, long story short, this is a clever presentation, with the ideas, with the framing devices. They're playing audio tapes, but they have like actors to like basically, like, kind of obscured actors, basically kind of giving, kind of motion to the tapes playing.
Oh, is that what they're doing? Ooh, I didn't know that.
I mean, it looks good though.
I'm not a fan of that style though.
No, but trust me, it's like you don't see their faces, in which it's just kind of like it
okay.
kind of adds like.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's not like they're not lip syncing to it. It just kind of adds like an ethereal quality of like we're kind of we have like a little bit of archival stuff with the Marilyn Monroe footage. So it's like all the focus is really going towards Marilyn Monroe, and everyone else is sort of like, like the testimonies of the interviews on the tapes are like people like reflecting back as they showed the archived stuff. So it's pretty. I think it's well done in that regard. They really highlight kind of the honestly what they're doing really impressive is they're highlighting the mistreatment of Marilyn Monroe at times. Where again you kind of take the most beautiful woman and sex symbol of a generation, who basically accumulated through her kind of her appeal. She accumulated so much power. She had ways with the president. With Kennedy, the Kennedy.
Yeah, she did.
So that's what I'm saying. So it kind of goes to the fact that like the government, this kind of the forces around Kennedy they weren't thrilled about that. It's like, we don't like this lady.
There's definitely conspiracies that like indirectly led to his assassination.
And well, I mean, I forget how far they get into it on the Kennedy side of things, but what they do is they speculate over that having a role in the circumstances of her death, of her suicide, which there were theories that perhaps
I could see that too.
Yeah. So that's kind of what the third act of the film kind of is. Really, it's about sort of like the the conspiratorial aspect of of the tragedy of her death. So it's an interesting film for sure. I definitely want to watch it again because I think I might have missed. I don't know. I feel like I didn't get the full impact of it, but I think I did like it though. So, All right.
Okay, let's see. So, oh boy. Oh, this is going to be surprisingly a hot take. Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, a movie that absolutely flopped at the box office, probably single-handedly killed the Fantastic Beasts franchise. And quite honestly, fuck J.K. Rowling as a person. I feel like similar towards her as I do towards Jared Leto. Like, I think Jared Leto's more of a creep, but I think she's like probably even worse as far as her politics go.
Man, I wonder whatever happened with her. Like, how did that happen with her?
But god damn it, Dragon, I think this is a pretty damn good movie. I really hate to say it. I honestly don't know if it's the fact that like this is easily the most competent and well put together of the Fantastic Beast movies that I'm like, yes, finally a plot that actually makes sense and it's not completely bloated by too many characters and I actually find all the characters compelling. I think this is easily the best of the Fantastic Beast movies. I think it's probably like towards the upper tier of Harry Potter movies, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think one of the reasons that I like it as much as I do is because, unlike the Potter movies, this is like pretty much a completely new story. So it's like, it's not just like, because I've always been more of a Potter book guy than a movie guy. I grew up with the books. I always read the books first before seeing the movies. So I always kind of viewed the series through that lens. And Dragon, in that respect, god damn it, Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen, they have such damn good chemistry on screen, Dragon, and they make this fucking
To be fair,
movie.
Mads Mikkelsen has great chemistry with everybody.
I know, but Dragon, they make this movie though. Jude Law is so fucking good. He is acting his heart out. He is way better than this franchise deserves. It is so funny. Not only that, but I feel like this movie has like a really good theme of brotherhood. You know, Newt Scamander and his brother get a good dynamic and subplot. Dumbledore's brother was way more interesting in this movie than I thought they could write a character like that. And Jacob Kowalski continues to be like probably my favorite character in the entire Wizarding world. That character is such a gem. Yeah. I don't know. I really solidly like this movie a lot, and I like it's weird. I walked in with zero expectations. I walked in mostly just because, you know, as a childhood fan of the books, I kind of just wanted to keep up with the conversation about the series. But I honestly think it's one of the better Potter movies overall. I really like it a lot, and I think most of that really does kind of come down to the dynamic between Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen. I really think, Dragon, I honestly think it's worth seeing for you, even if you're not a Potter fan, just because I know you're a Mads Mikkelsen fan, and Mads Mikkelsen is great in this. But yeah, you know, the really funny thing though is that we do have the situation with Ezra Miller, and you can clearly tell they like cut his role to the bone in this movie. Because he's not a major character in the movie, but you can tell it's like, yeah, there's stuff that they cut. Like there's stuff with his character that they definitely rushed through. But shit, almost every one of the characters in this movie are likable. This might be one of the most likable and well-written ensembles in any Potter movie. It's honestly underrated, and I hate myself for saying that. I give all the credit to Steve Kloves and none of the credit to J.K. Rowling. All right, moving on.
Okay, White Hot, the rise and fall of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Now, unlike Marilyn Monroe, this is a subject that I have no interest in.
You know, it's surprising though, because the main reason I checked this out is you know, kind of that '90s and early 2000s nostalgia. You know, it's the fact that you know, I remember I think all of us, at least at some point, I always saw that Abercrombie and Fitch ads. You know, like the weirdly weird, like why are all these men shirtless on these bags? What is going on here? And is the fact that, because here's the thing, Abercrombie and Fitch just became kind of a punchline in pop culture, which always kind of stuck with me. The fact, like when CW advertised all the Arrow seasons, like in the beginning, it was always like essentially everyone made the Abercrombie and Fitch joke because it's like he's always shirtless doing that bar lift thing. Why, you know, why do we keep doing this? It's like an Abercrombie and Fitch ad. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's kind of a fun aspect of like the first act's kind of like the fun, kind of like the the reminiscence and nostalgia, and then it kind of gets darker as it goes on. Like the middle part is sort of like the we explore like the trend of the time, and then the whole antiquated then we get into the antiquated discriminatory policies in effect at Abercrombie and Fitch. Like they wouldn't hire anyone out of shape, or like not barely any black people there. The fact that it was that whole thing. It was not as PC as our fashion designers of today and everything. You had like Finch apparently was a real creep. Who's obsessed with the youth demographic. He had like a weird kind of like like a weird like pulled back like Botoxy face. I think the best part of it honestly was they made this joke. I was so happy they did. where someone called out Flash Thompson from Joe Manganiello from the first Spider-Man movie, in which apparently I had no idea about this, but I remember like, yeah, it's kind of the casting of the early 2000s where they basically villainized the Abercrombie and Fitch, and that's where like the guys who working at the Abercrombie and Fitches like felt a little bad about it because they were told to be really rude to people in the store. Like they didn't want to be. Like they were
really?
told.
That's
so they
funny.
were told. So if you've ever heard of stories of like you go into like an Abercrombie and Fitch, the
Yeah,
exclusive, they would mistreat you and they wouldn't help you. They were told to do that.
You know what's funny is that I always had an experience like that at Radio Shack where I felt like the people that worked at Radio Shack were always super pretentious if you didn't know what you were talking about as far as the technology went.
Well, I don't know how that one works, but yeah, it's...
No, but Dragon, I gotta tell you, you're selling me on this thing.
Let me put it this way. I thought it was fine. It's the last blockbuster in terms of our nostalgia, kind of late 90s, early 2000s era documentary.
Abercrombie and Fitch is not blockbuster as far as nostalgia goes, but
well, I know. I'm just saying, it's
blockbuster is hallowed ground as far as nostalgia goes.
I know. I'm just saying in terms
like that's
of
practically a church.
I just mean in terms of your era. So I'm saying it's not a fair comparison, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's as it's not going to be as stirring as something like that. But I mean, again, it's interesting to say the least. Just seeing these are things you never think about when you walk through the mall back in the day. It's like, huh?
Sure.
You never thought of it. What's going on with those shirtless weirdos? What's going on there?
All right. Okay, and let's get to the bad guys.
The bad guys.
We're gonna be the good. We're gonna pretend to be the good guys so we can keep on being the bad guys. All right. Oh, Dragon, you need to try. I know your situation with the theater, but you need to try to see this movie.
I mean, believe me, I was open to seeing it, but again, I had to be choosy.
You will love it. Yeah, this is easily probably the best DreamWorks movie since How to Train Your Dragons 2, hands down. It's
what about 3?
Better than 3 in my opinion.
All right, fine.
I mean 3, I need to rewatch 3 probably. It ended the trilogy well. I don't know, it just didn't feel as epic as the other 2 did. But okay, let's talk about the style here first of all, because this might be one of the I'm going to get so much shit for saying this. The style of this movie is arguably better than Spider-Verse. It's that fucking good.
I'm backing away slowly right now, folks. I'm just in the corner right now.
The way they incorporate the CG and the hand-drawn characters is honestly mind-blowing to me. I was sitting there watching it in theaters, just how slick, how fast, how rapid the movement is on the characters, mixed with the lighting and the cell shading, and just one of the odd things that I got super fixated with was the texture on the snake shirt, Dragon. Oh man, nothing looks like this movie. This movie is just it's everything that we've always wanted from a Looney Tunes movie, as far as just the gags and the visual humor and just the slick. It looks so good. It looks so fucking good. Other than that, I really think a lot of the characters shine. Not all the characters shine. There's a couple of them. The piranha has some fart jokes that I'm really not a fan of. And the tarantula is literally just Aquafina, just being Aquafina. And I'm just, yeah, I can take or leave that. It's literally just hey guys, I'm Aquafina. I am also in this movie.
But, saying, look at me, I'm a spider.
Right. Okay, the dynamic between Sam Rockwell as the wolf and Mark Maron as the snake. Holy shit, it is one of the best dynamics.
So Maron really delivered, eh?
It's one of the best dynamics between any two lead characters in any DreamWorks movie. It is fucking Miguel and Tulio worthy. Maybe not that much, but it's close.
Yeah, that's like the highest duo
It's
praise
close.
you can get.
It's honestly close, Dragon. It's so compelling.
They're really that good together. You're not just
They're
saying
fantastic.
That.
They're fantastic. Dragon, Mark Maron, holy shit, he needs to do more acting. He is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell is so slick, so smooth.
Well, when isn't he though? He's always that.
I know, but I even buy Richard Ayoade is the adorable guinea pig who turns out to be a villain. You know what's funny about that is it's like I literally experienced a baby's first twist villain in the theater because it was literally like it was only me and then the family with like 3 young kids. And the young kids were fucking freaking out when he was revealed to be the bad guy. I mean, it's super obvious if you watch it with any sort of sense of narrative, you know where it's leading to. I don't even feel like that's a spoiler, but I thought it was kind of adorable. Like, oh, these kids are getting their first taste of a plot twist. How nice. But yeah, I will say that the plot goes from super predictable to super off the rails. But I don't even necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think how off the rails it gets, it honestly kind of reminds me of something like, like Regular Show or Angry Beavers, where the plot starts in a pretty mundane way. And then by the end of it, it's just like, whoa, like, how did we get here? But, yeah, solid 9 out of 10 and surprisingly the best April release this month that I saw. I really love this movie, Dragon. I really do. Like, oh, and I gotta mention, Craig Robinson is the shark. Holy shit. Holy shit. His whole gag is that he plays the master of disguise for this group, and the whole gag is like he's a shark. How could anyone buy him as anything? And Dragon, there are 2 gags in this movie that are honestly 2 of the funniest gags in any DreamWorks movie. Like up there with like some top tier Shrek gags. Like
really,
I was laughing so fucking hard at a couple of these shark gags with him in disguises. It was fucking marvelous.
Is he just wearing a fake mustache for one of those?
Yes,
knew it.
Yes.
I have a 6th sense for the mustache. I knew it was there. I knew it was there.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, it's like the piranha and the tarantula, they're pretty much just there to round out the ensemble of bad guys, and their characters really don't amount to much. Okay. But man, I feel like the writing with the wolf and the snake are so fucking good. Oh.
Okay.
And then also the security guard is goddamn wonderful. She honestly might have the best animation in the whole movie because she gets just really temperamental and pissed off, and the way they animate that is so fucking funny. Yeah, see this movie. I love it. It's already my favorite animated movie of the year. I love it.
Okay. All right, and that brings us to the TV stuff.
Oh yes. Okay. All right. So, Dragon, just run through this, man.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, folks. I am on a bender that's about to come to an end. I'm pretty close, Dragon. I'm within my last 10 films, but I have been working on a project doing rewatching every Walt Disney Animated Studios feature film in anticipation for a giant ranking that we'll be doing towards the end of the month, which I'm really excited for. But for that reason, I really haven't had a lot of time for TV at all. And I have been watching stuff like Moon Knight and Barry and Better Call Saul and all that. But obviously,
they're not finished yet, so we can't.
Yeah, so it's like, it's not like I haven't been watching any TV. I just haven't had any time to sit down and watch a full season of anything. But Dragon, go ahead and crack out what you got.
All right, so I got 3 things, pretty simple and straightforward, each of them. So you got the green eggs and ham, the second serving.
So I'm skeptical about this just because I don't know, like, how do they go beyond the story?
All right, you ready for this? It's pretty cool. Okay, one of the big things they do this season that laid in my heart, this is one of my favorite Dr. Seuss books. They incorporate the Butter Battle book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a
Do they
big,
really?
yeah. So like, yeah, the eye. So we kind of jump forward here. Where Guy, he's married into the family. Of
Isn't the Butter Battle book one of the ones that's banned?
I think so. Yeah,
I'm not saying that's a bad thing that they're using
yeah,
that. I'm just saying that's great.
yeah. I think you're right. I think it was the band
uh,
one. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I love the Butter Battle book because it ends so wonderfully. But yes, yeah. Of course, Michael Douglas, he continues to impress. His voice work is so stunning on this show. Yeah, I mean Netflix, whether it's going to continue or not, probably not. Netflix knew they were doing right by Dr. Seuss with this show, man. I mean, the first season, I think the first season still is better because it's adapting that book,
uh,
but but yeah, we incorporate like the main crux is like Sam is looking for his basically Sam has a very simple goal this season: find his mother and have her make him green eggs and ham. Very simple. And on the flip side, Guy, he's looking for a job to support his new family, and he ends up kind of like going to help basically a war, the Butter Battle book place, and they're basically the two sides are at war with each other over how they butter their bread, and Guy basically kind of gets he's kind of tricked into he has no idea he's they invite him down there to build stuff for him, but the running gag with Guy throughout the whole show is that everything he builds blows up, so they want to use him essentially as a weapons maker because everything he builds is going to blow up. So yeah, so it's pretty neat. There's kind of a spy element with Sam's mother. So there's kind of like a James, like the opening credits are kind of James Bondy, and so there's it's a little out there, but it's still pretty fun. Yeah, it was indeed a good second season. Yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't realize I'm using. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so next one. Okay, Jimmy Seville, a British horror story. This is on Netflix. It's a two-part miniseries sort of thing.
Why not just make it a feature film at that point?
Don't ask me. They're going. These are decisions that are putting them underwater right now, so you can understand.
Exactly.
So, okay, long story short, essentially, you had this English TV personality and philanthropist, Jimmy Seville. Basically, the guy was like Mr. Make a Wish. He had like a show called Jimmy'll Fix It, or that was kind of like the big catchphrase. Jimmy'll Fix It, where basically he made like everyone's dreams come true, mostly children. Made their dreams come true. Like, they wrote to him, and the guy was like a living Santa Claus for England, essentially. And essentially, we reveal like the big turning point in part two. I mean, with the part one, part two breakdowns, like part one, predominantly the good stuff. Part two, all the dark stuff. So all the dark stuff is you reveal that he was essentially the reason.
You know what I hate about that? As
What?
far as structure goes,
Why don't I just watch part two, right?
yeah, it
Yeah.
literally in a lot of documentaries do that. And it's literally just like, great, I literally have to watch like a full hour of basically exposition.
Now, to be
It
again,
kills the pacing.
now in its defense, though, again, they're kind of building that something bad's happening, and primarily it's again you want to see the duality of this guy, where again he did so many nice things, but he did it ultimately to balance the scales for all the bad stuff he did. The bad stuff he did. Let's just say, he violated some young girls, and it's not pretty.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. Just like the magnitude of how many years this guy was like the number one citizen, and he was doing all these good things, but again, balancing out the bad of that. And the really gets me is the haunting aftermath of this guy. Is basically it's like the jelly bean from Rick and Morty. You remember the king?
Yes, I remember the jelly bean.
So essentially, this guy's like the jelly bean. And there's a bit where after they found all the bad stuff he did, they had to get rid of his gravestone because it said something really, like a really sweet gravestone. Like, this man who did so many nice things, they had to get rid of it. It's like, oh god, it was. So yeah, it was an interesting watch for sure. No idea about this guy. It was yeah. Okay. Lastly, this is one that's rather interesting. This is Visible out of television. So this was another app. This is an Apple Plus show. I suspect it was a spinoff of like a CNN show because I saw something eerily similar to this, but so about like kind of the black experience in pop culture and television. So that's what I've seen before. Now this is about the LGBTQ community. It's 5 episodes, covers the full gambit. A lot of good stuff. It kind of covers like it goes through kind of the eras where you have like the denial of the 50s and the 70s. They're cashing in on the flamboyant gay characters, like with Three's Company and stuff like that. And you have the more we're taking it seriously with All in the Family. Then of course the AIDS crisis, and then obviously we're in kind of like where we're at now, with like Transparent and Modern Family. The era of and the non-binary being on the table and everything. So I did not. I didn't know how I was going to feel about this one, but yeah, it was rather well presented. Had a lot of like Neil Patrick Harris and a lot of actors that we've seen before, kind of weighing in. It was yeah, it was good. Again, Apple Plus, they've been really delivering on their content so far, is what I've been seeing. Again, it's kind of ridiculous the hoops you have to jump through to get access to that content, but it's been pretty good. And that's the ball game.
All right, let's go to catch up. Oh, okay, mystery movies.
All right. Yeah, I believe you're going first, right?
All right. So, Dragon, I said that my favorite scene in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent was the scene where they just talk about their favorite movies.
Don't tell me. Yes, tell me what the movie was right now.
Paddington 2!
Tiki, you're not going to believe this.
Did you have the same thing? Did you watch both of them?
I watched both of them. Did you?
You watched
yes.
That's what you. So we did the same thing. We have the same double feature.
Oh, okay. So let me get this straight. So you, for the first time, watched Paddington's 1 and 2, right?
I did not watch 1. No.
But wait. So you didn't? Did you see 1?
No.
Okay. Well,
I jumped straight into Paddington 2 specifically because I've. You know what's funny is that when that joke was being set up, I was like, oh, he's going to say Paddington 2, isn't he? Like, I called that. I called it. I fucking called it.
How on earth did you call Paddington 2?
Because people rave about Paddington 2.
Well, after seeing it, I can see why.
But yeah, okay. Well, let's just jump into it because holy shit, it is amazing.
Well, then, should I go first with the first one then?
Well, do you want to just because do you also have Caligari?
No, I don't have Caligari.
Oh, okay. Because I have that's my other mystery.
Well, because I've seen Caligari though. That's
okay. So let's just both talk about Paddington 2 then, because it's on our catch up, right?
Well, I know, but I'm saying chronologically, there's Paddington 1 though. Should I talk Paddington 1 before we talk Paddington 2? You want to?
Oh God, I don't even know how to do this now.
Just start with Caligari. All right, just start with Caligari.
Start with Caligari, okay.
Hello, folks. We'll build the Paddington 2. Just tell them about Caligari.
So yeah, one of the big plot points in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is Nicolas Cage's obsession with this movie. And I can see why this movie's amazing. I love it to death. And why haven't I seen it before? My God. Dragon, just the expressionism and just how this is... Caligari is like I've been sucking Nosferatu's dick for years. I'm sorry for the imagery. It's just like, that's how I can describe it. It's like I have just been going on and on about how much I love Nosferatu. But this is even earlier than Nosferatu and even better. And in my opinion, probably even more influential.
Yeah, well, Batman the Animated Series got a lot of its lighting from Caligari, actually.
Okay, so the setting, the fact that it's technically a slasher movie, the Frankenstein of it all. Oh, God, this is such a good movie. Absolutely makes me want to get into German expressionism. Absolutely. Like, Dragon, just there is such a weird kind of surreal rhythm to the art of the silent film that I am honestly, like, this movie is almost kind of like a gateway drug in a way for me. It's like I am fascinated by this sort of art form now. Like German expressionism is something that I have only dipped my toe into. Like I don't even think I've seen anything all the way through until now. So I mean, my God, I love the look of this movie to death. I mean, obviously, like, it's influenced so many different things and so many different people. It's pretty much the birthplace of modern horror as we know it, or just horror in general as far as cinema goes. Like Tim Burton, obviously, huge influence there. Oh, God, it's so good. It's so fucking good.
Cool. Okay, let me tell you about the first Paddington.
Yes.
So, man, I tell you, began purely because of the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I've always heard, like, oh, Paddington's so good. I was like, okay, it's going to be a cute, fine. So they're saying it's a nice film. But, it's like, oh, my God, even Nick Cage is talking about more so Paddington 2. But honestly, the reason I watch both because I'm a completionist. It's like, oh, I can't just jump into 2 without 1. I got to watch the first one.
You see, I specifically skipped it on the basis that I'm like, okay, like, how good does Paddington 2 just hold up as a standalone
I know,
movie?
I flirted with that too, but I was like, nah, basically, here's the thing. It was both of it. Both of them were available. I was like, well, if it's available, I should give it a shot. Plus, you were throwing two movies at me. I was like, okay, but had I known they were both, like, one of them was Paddington. Anyway, this is what I get for not asking the one time I don't ask for specifics. So seriously, the first Paddington movie, Tiki, I'm amazed with how much this lived up to the hype. The first Paddington, utterly delightful. Ben Whishaw, he's so darn charming as this bear man. Just this is like the first movie is like the perfect kids movie. I love Hugh Bonneville and Sally Hawkins as the Browns. Again, it's basically just this idea of this proper English bear with a hat, just kind of living with this family and just charming the pants off of them. It's just I just love that we kind of front lead with a lot of genuine pathos in which we kill off the uncle, and the aunt essentially kind of gives him up for adoption practically. It's just there's the you have like the miracle exception, of course, and okay, we have a talking bear that no one's really going to question. But beyond that, it's like all these fun little English shenanigans while we're in London. It's like, again, it's oddly, again, all of our synergistic bear movies, between like, Christopher Robin, or it's like Winnie the Pooh in general, and now Paddington. And I'm sure here's what we should do. We should have a crossover between the three bear characters. Okay?
Oh, God.
You got Paddington, you got Winnie the Pooh, and you got the corduroy bear. Tell me that's not a bear
Throw
crossover.
Ted in there too, just for kicks and giggles.
Well, if you wanted to be ambitious, Ted could be the framing device.
There you go.
Ted can narrate it. Anyway, but seriously, I mean, there's like one scene in the movie I'm not crazy about. It's kind of bad. It's bathroom humor, not in that sense you're thinking of, but like he's in the bathroom, he's like he mistakes toothbrushes for like Q-tips. It's kind of gross. But aside from that, it's just the movie's like relentlessly cute and, let's just say, sweet as marmalade. So that brings us to the second Paddington. But I'll let you take the lead on the second Paddington.
Dragon, it made me want to be a better man.
Right?
Holy shit! What the hell? This, goddamn, this movie is a work of art. They don't make them like this anymore, man. This is just like it's family filmmaking at its absolute best.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, man. Both of these movies are just a testament to like family filmmaking at its best. It's just like the morals are just there so perfectly. I mean, in this one, I love. I mean, this is gonna sound weird out of context. I love it when Paddington goes to prison.
Okay, no, I knew you would, because it's literally just like Paddington. Just, oh God, it's so pleasant. It's so fucking pleasant.
Yeah, it's so. Brendan Gleeson, who I've seen Brendan Gleeson play some terrifying characters. One of which I don't want to be political. He played a very politically despicable character. But him playing Knuckles, though, the Knuckles arc. I'm not talking about Idris Elba, kids. Knuckles. Knuckles is the arc with.
You
Knuckles.
think they did the gag with the N instead of the K, just maybe because of that too? Like, no, we're not talking about that, Knuckles.
I'd like to think so, but probably not. Regardless, Knuckles, Brendan Gleeson's Knuckles, his arc with Paddington is just so delightful. He's the biggest, toughest guy in the prison, and he teaches him how to make marmalade.
I just love how he just instantly takes a liking to Paddington. Just fucking.
How can
instantly.
you not? Everyone loves this bear, man. Everyone but Peter Capaldi. And even he in the first movie, you didn't see it. In the first movie, he came around on him. Which again, they kind of backpedaled on that with him here, but it doesn't matter. But it's a very straightforward story on this one. Paddington just wants to get a birthday gift for his Aunt Lucy. And what's that?
I love that. I love I think maybe my favorite scene. I love all the montages for one. I think goddamn, this is just weird comparison, but it's kind of like some Better Call Saul levels of montage.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
I love the fact that in some of the montages, there's just literally a diegetic band playing the music.
That was in the first movie too. We had the whole band runner.
Okay, I really like that. I really like that stylistically.
I don't get it, but I like it.
It doesn't have to make sense. It's a movie.
No, I know it doesn't.
I like it so much.
That's what I'm saying. I just kind of like that we don't know though. It's I don't need to know why there's a band following them. They're just there.
Right, right, right.
I'll tell you one thing: a villain. I think the villain's fun here, but I think Nicole Kidman in the first movie was better because she had kind of a plot reason for. She had a really good
I
plot
thought
reason.
the whole treasure hunt thing with him was a little bit like that's the one element of the movie where I'm like, I like the Paddington stuff so much, I don't want to cut away from that, you
I want
know?
to highlight the English cast is wonderful in these films.
I mean, it's pretty much like the most all-star English cast since the Harry Potter movies.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
we talked about him on Gallivan. You have more experience. You think you and Monkey probably have more theater experience with him, but Hugh Bonneville, man, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Brown. That arc in the first movie, it's kind of like a Knuckles arc here, but it's kind of like like Mr. Brown's like the very. He thinks he's like a scam. He thinks Paddington's like a scam artist or something at first. They come so far.
I think between the two, I would have to pick Caligari because, it's literally the basis for a lot of modern cinema, but
But the bear has marmalade sandwiches in his hat.
I mean, no, I'm glad that I did finally get around to Paddington 2. I should get around to the first one as well. Because I've always been super curious about because people have been Dragon, people have been elevating this movie for a while
And it
now.
always sounded like, really, can it be that good?
Yeah, and so that's why, when the whole thing of oh, I'm embarrassed to say what my favorite movie is, I'm like, it's totally gonna be Paddington 2. It's totally gonna be Paddington 2.
But yeah, man, Javi has good taste. Yep.
And that is one thing that I did. I thought it took a little too long to get to the ending of Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, but I did really like that whole, all right, they can find common ground in the middle of Paddington 2, the father and the daughter.
That was a great payoff. Oh, by the way, I love the cutesy joke. I don't know how intentional this was. I like to think because the meta context of the movie had to be they had to think about it. It's got to be a reference to what is it, the Wicker Man? Yeah, it has to be a reference to the Wicker Man.
Yeah, sure.
The fact Nick Cage and bears.
Right.
It could just be again because
I honestly just think it fits the character really. It fits the criteria of what's a movie that could legitimately be considered anyone's favorite movie, but kind of be yeah, really? It fits the criteria.
I know. For that reason, I think you're entirely. I think that's very likely. But a part of me is just kind of pulling for.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that they didn't have as many. He does one not the bees reference, but that's about it as far as Wicker Man stuff.
I don't know. I think Nick Cage has done so many crazy things. People keep forgetting he was walking around in a bear suit once.
Right.
That's a thing. Anyway. All right. Okay. So let me tell you about. Let me go to my other mystery movie, and then we'll be back in the swing of things here.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So Cherry. I finally was able to see Cherry because of the Apple TV Plus loophole. So yeah, Cherry,
the Tom Holland one, right?
Yeah. This is the Russo brothers directed a movie with Tom Holland. For
I had no idea the Russos directed it.
Yeah. Weird. So the Russos directed it. I was surprised too. I thought they just produced it, but no, they directed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, Everything Everywhere All at Once is it's fucking weird that they produced it because it's totally not their style at all.
Huh.
Anyways, look, I'm just saying, they're very competent action movie directors, but it's.
Well, remember before action, they were doing comedies.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, range.
Very bland, forgettable comedies.
Oh, come on. You, Me, and Dupree was nice.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but it was nice.
All right.
Anyway.
I feel like that movie's the fucking textbook definition of a background noise movie.
But without it, we don't get Captain America Winter Soldier. Okay. So it's fun. It's A-okay in my book.
All right.
Anyway. So, anyways, the Russo brothers, they did this. It's based on a novel called Cherry, which is I think it's semi-autobiographical, but it's there's some liberties taken. There's a stylistic thing with this movie where the character is breaking the fourth wall a little bit, and it's really neat how they filmed it too because it's kind of subtle. Where occasionally he'll look to camera, I think, but mainly if you look, all the signs in the background are kind of like his skewed perception of him FU signs at the bank or something. Anyway, so Tom Holland's basically Tom Holland playing the character called Cherry, who's in a love story, and essentially it's a love story that kind of turns into the plight of a young man, kind of going through his life, and you see he falls in love with Sierra Bravo, who's she was the girl from Wayne I told you about ages ago, Basically, he ends up enlisting in the military, and he goes through a horrible experience, gives him PTSD, and he becomes a drug addict and then a bank robber. So, rather exciting life for a young man. And yeah, it's kind of this grounded tragedy at play here. It's kind of, I like how they segmented like the chapters of the book, so you have like, it goes from like prologue to epilogue, so it has like a very, very deliberate kind of structure at play here. It kind of jumps in time a little bit, kind of like shifts around. Again, it has some good montage work. I think it really I don't know. I think it like it. Critics were not, apparently the critics didn't like it, which I had no idea about, because I steered away from it in the hopes that I would one day see this film, and I did. But yeah, I think it's got a beautifully tragic end. Then you have the epilogue. Epilogue's good, but I'm saying it has like an end. I was like, man, that's an ending for you. Wow. But yeah, I think this movie's like the Russos refining their craft. They're dipping their hands in some other stuff again, kind of like they've been doing in the producing capacity with stuff like Everything Everywhere Always All at Once, or some
close enough.
I know. I tried to wing it, but yeah. So I don't know. This lived up to the hype. I mean, I don't know how good the critics like it, but it was. I enjoyed it.
All right. Okay, so can I just crack out the the three Dante ones just really quick, just kind of like sort of like rapid fire, because we already talked about all of them.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Dragon, really?
I mean, I don't trust you. I kind of need you awake between segments here, man. I need you to,
You're killing me here. All right.
All right, fine. Do them all. Do them all.
Are you saying you want me to pay attention to the last two that you have? Because I will.
I hope you will, but now we'll have to wing it. Now, go on.
All right. Okay, so really quick, just to kind of go through them. I mean, Dragon, I'm basically just making more time for you, essentially, by streamlining this. So
well, I'm afraid I'm going to get some Z's here, but go on.
Well, you're not going to get Z's because I'm not tired, because I've got a Better Call Saul episode to watch. All right?
Okay.
So, hence why I'm anxious to get this done.
Well, you could have said that in the beginning.
Okay.
Maybe we could have arranged them differently. Go on.
All right. Gremlins 2, the new batch. I feel like this is very much kind of like the Wayne's World 2 of Joe Dante movies, in the sense that like it's not as good or as memorable as the first movie, but it's more bonkers, and it's very creative, it's very meta. I feel like it kind of set the stage for kind of like self-aware humor in certain ways. I feel like it's almost ahead of its time in that sort of way. Liked it a lot. Matinee. Matinee is easily the best Joe Dante film that we watched this past month. I really loved it. It was just very, very much right up my alley as far as just, kind of like, oh my God, it's literally just like a full fucking movie about a theme, like essentially a theme park 4D theater. Like, my God, that's just awesome conceptually. And I love how the climax is kind of working in like, stuff from, the effects that John Goodman was hyping up for the theater, and also like real world stuff that's going down. Really think the Cuban Missile Crisis setting was very effective in that regard too. Kind of added to the paranoia. Love it. Looney Tunes back in action, probably the weakest overall, but that's just because the human stuff doesn't really work all that well, and Joe Dante pretty much acknowledges that. But the Looney Tunes stuff works in spades. Like, I feel like out of the three like live action / hybrid animation Looney Tunes movies we've got, this is like far and away the best one as far as just like the characterization of the Looney Tunes themselves. I feel like every Looney Tune was used like perfectly, like where they needed to be. Yosemite Sam is the casino owner. Foghorn is the poker dealer. Just like every little thing, every little, Marvin the Martian being an alien in Area 51. Every little role was just perfectly in place.
Area 52.
Right. I love Brendan Fraser, the gag that Brendan Fraser is Brendan Fraser stunt double in the Mummy movies. That's great. Yeah, I really didn't buy the romantic subplot, and it's pretty shoehorned in as far as like the 2000s. Like we can't have a movie and not have it have a romantic lead.
But self-aware.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, overall, very good time. All right, Dragon, you've got all my attention. What you got?
The Banker.
Okay, is this a big one?
Oh, this was a good one. It was on. It was another Apple. It was another Apple movie. So the banker. So the banker essentially. This movie got buried because apparently when it came out, I think it was supposed to come out right before the pandemic really hit. And what happened was apparently like there's some allegations came to light about the subject matter. So unfortunately, I had no idea about this. So apparently that's why it kind of got buried. No one ever heard of it really. But yeah, this is a very solid movie, Tiki. I really enjoyed this as a biopic. It's Anthony Mackie and Sam Jackson in it. They're really good too. It's basically Anthony Mackie was Bernard Garrett, and essentially this guy's whole thing was like in the 50s. He basically created affordable housing for black families. He basically put them in nice houses that previously belonged to white communities and white families. And essentially, he did all the right channels, a very morally upstanding kind of guy. And essentially, he's dealing with the racism of the 50s, of course. Very moral character. And ultimately, him doing everything the right way. There was his own kind of grit, pulling things up by the bootstraps and all that. He runs into a snag where essentially the bank finds an excuse to take all that away from him. So he goes to Sam Jackson, who essentially, he basically is like a black investor for the neighborhood, where he's a club owner. That's how he made his money, and basically invests in all the black businesses. So basically, he's partnered up with him, and they found a loophole for this real estate problem. It's like, well, what if we buy the bank, the building of the bank? We're not just going to buy the bank because that'd be ridiculously expensive. We're just going to buy the building, so they have to deal with us. They can't just shut us out in terms of dealing with us. So to do this though, they had to concoct a scheme where they won't deal with us or let us two black men buy this bank. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a white man, Nicholas Holt, Nicholas Holt, from the X-Men movies and everything.
Sure.
Nicholas Holt, who's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, looking to make some cash. He basically he's unbiased and everything. They basically hire him, and it's like, hey, listen, okay, so we want you to basically pretend to be like a wealthy white investor, and we'll tell you what to say, and you just memorize these details. And essentially, they buy the bank, and then they kind of expand. It's kind of this big business they're building there, and everything kind of starts to go belly up when Anthony Mackie tries to basically goes to his hometown in Texas, and he wants to buy a bank there, which in the South, when they get found out, it does not go well.
Yeah, you can imagine.
So let's just say, look, long story short, this movie, it doesn't have a happy ending, but it kind of flickers some silver linings at the very end, and it just really I don't know, it goes to some really interesting places. It's just a really well made film, just very solid. And it's just the ideas fascinates me is just the fact the mentality of the 50s, where ultimately what it boiled down to when they were kind of like on trial and everything is that mentally, they couldn't stomach the fact that black men outfoxed them and actually found a way to be successful. And that's what's really despicable about it. It's like, oh God, like they just found a way they were trying to make an honest buck, and and like there's this great runner where Mackie, like he refuses to basically so they can spy on their guy on the inside.
Is it preachy though? Like, does it do that Green Book thing?
I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I just think that's the thing. It's kind of measured in how that goes. Because I mean, basically, the idea is like you have like a privately honest exchange between Sam Jackson, who knows how the world works, and Mackie, who like knows how it works, but he's just in denial of it. And Sam Jackson respects him for the earnestness of himself. And like, there's this runner where Mackie will not. He just does not want to wear like the guise of like a limo driver or a janitor because he feels so demeaned by it. But he's kind of corralled into doing it at one point in the movie. It's kind of like a big moment, like, oh, poor guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's got some. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a highlight for me. Okay, lastly, this one's gonna go by fast. Pharma Bro.
Yeah, I've seen this advertised. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like, what is it even on? Remind me.
Hulu. I'm pretty sure Hulu.
Hulu, right. And I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I see it on the front page of Hulu so much, and I've never actually like considered watching it.
I think you'd like it more than I did, honestly.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I was a little let down by it because I think they oversold it to me just in terms of like what they wrote in the little premise. Basically it's so it's focused on this guy Martin Scarelli, I think his name is, or Ciccarelli. Anyway, this guy, essentially spoiled rich prick who raised like the cost of the pharmaceutical drug so people couldn't get it, and it was very publicized. And then this guy ends up being like kind of like the ultimate troll. Honestly, that's kind of what it becomes, where he he has like this call line where people can call him and he'll just insult them.
Really?
Like,
What?
He has like almost like a 24-hour blog going on where basically people will call. I'm not joking. It's on the thing where they'll call him and he'll just basically insult him, and there's calling him to kind of get his goat and like say, "Hey man, why'd you do all this bad stuff?" And he'll just like throw snide comments at him. So he's like the ultimate rich troll.
Okay, I want to see a documentary just based on that.
So I mean, that's
that goes into that.
I mean, again, a large portion of the documentary is that, though.
Because that is fucking insane.
So basically, for me, I went into this because the movie's like the tagline is the most hated man in America. So what and with the pharma thing.
Okay, yeah, right.
Well, I know, so that's what I'm saying. So I went in thinking, okay,
like, I forget the name of his name, but the fucking Struberg guy from
Richard Sackler.
Yeah, from Dope Sick. Yeah, thank you.
Literally was about to say, yes, I went in expecting Richard Sackler from Dope Sick because of the whole most hated man in America thing, and I did not get that guy.
Yeah, you cannot tell me that there's any person in America more hated in the pharmaceutical industry than that guy.
Yeah, you see my line of thought here, like Pharma Bro, most hated man in America. I just saw Dope Sick. My line of thought.
I see your line. I see how you got reeled in.
Yeah. That's the thing. My logic was okay. If it's either Sackler or a guy who was in like the Sackler circle of some kind. Like maybe this guy, like Sackler, did have a fall guy. Perhaps it's the fall. I don't know. Anyways, ultimately, it's like the more like the most immature man in America. And,
right. Okay. That's here's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing you're gonna like most about this if you ever watch it. Okay. With this guy of all the prickish things he did with his money. He basically there's like an auction for like a very valuable Wu-Tang Clan album. And he bought it, and he basically just to troll everybody.
Oh, I think I heard about this.
So that's the guy. He's the guy who bought the Wu-Tang album and used it as a coaster.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So that's him. That's this guy.
Oh my God!
So yeah,
all right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is kind of like some absurdist bullshit that would probably get to me in a positive way.
And that's all she wrote.
All right. Oh boy. Okay. Best and worst, really quick, Dragon.
All right. Best is going to be tricky. I think I'm really tempted to say Paddington.
Worst is honestly going to be tricky for me.
I don't think I'm probably. I'm gonna, it's either Paddington or I really like The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, but it does kind of have third act issues. So I'm probably gonna say Paddington just because how do the charm of that thing was magnetic. It was radiating charm. Like, oh God, it was wonderful. Worst, easy. Morbius. Morbius, terrible. Morbius was the easiest.
Okay, I have the opposite problem, Dreg, because it's like, as much as I love Paddington 2 and that lived up to the hype, like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is literally like a touchstone of all of visual storytelling. Like that's gotta be the best.
Yeah.
Like it feels like a rabbit hole for me that I've stumbled upon with German expressionism. I can't wait to dive more into that shit. Worst, Dragon, I honestly don't know. I honestly, I cannot. I mean,
did you have worst, or did you just did you not have really anything that really struck you bad?
Nothing struck me. If I were probably my least favorite would probably be The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, just because of the third act issues. I mean, people are going to say it's insane that I think Fantastic Beasts is better, but I don't know what to, something about Fantastic Beasts just got to me. I feel like people are over-hating on that movie for the political element of it, which I understand. I get it has both Ezra Miller and J.K. Rowling involved. I get why you would want to hate it for political reasons. But, I don't know, man. As a Harry Potter fan, it did it for me. It did the trick. And, I liked it better than the other two.
Well, you could just say you had no bad movies this month.
All right, I have no bad movies. There you go.
Well, there you go. You lucked out. I, on the
And
other hand,
also
had
just
Morbius.
to highlight once again, the bad guys, fantastic. Real return to form for DreamWorks. All right. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough, and it's time to put the pen down. Until our next installment of... I'm sorry. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our Movie Memoirs! Nicholas!